Hey, y'all. Welcome back or welcome to Resilient and Rowdy. This is your host, Jess, and today's special guest is Nikki.
Hello. So we're
We're
here.
here.
It's been how long since we've been talking about doing this? Good to finally meet up and finally have some face to face.
I know I've wanted you on the podcast for a while. You have a really interesting story. You've done some really cool things. We've known each other for a couple years. So, for my audience, welcome Nicky MGTV. For those of you wondering, what does that mean?
So growing up, I was Nico till I was 5. I had the Southern Baptist like 4'11" black lady was my neighbor. She was sassy as hell, and I don't know why, Nico. And so I introduced myself as Nico because I thought my name, I don't know why. And then we had a new neighbor move in. They're like, do you just go by Nick? And then Nick just took off from then. And then got to high school. I have 2 last names. So that's where MG came from. And then after
Oh.
that, people were calling me Nikki as like this endearing term after high school. And I was like, okay, what's my new Instagram name? Nicky MG. Like the branding I had no mastermind plan of what this was going to be. So yeah, that's how that came about. And then I just was like, okay, Nicky MG is taken. So TV. And it just rolled there, and I never really cared about the name. It just was what was there.
I really like that. And I feel like sometimes, like when you know someone for a while, like sometimes that gets passed up in conversation. You're fancy. You got the 2 last names. All right.
It's progressive. I would tell anybody, like, never hyphenate your name. It's the worst. And you've been in the military, so they're like first name, last name, and you're like, now we're asking, does it cut off part of it? Is it the first last name, the second last name? Is there a space? Is it a hyphen, or is it smushed together? And it creates a lot more nuance to this than what it needs to be. So do not screw your kids over. Just give them one last name. I promise you, it's better.
Noted. Taking notes, ladies and gents. Okay. So, Nikki, so you've been in the creator space for a couple years now. You have a really awesome channel. But I feel like people gloss over who you are, while yes, you do talk about things in the news, pop culture, shenanigans. I want to know more about the man that's talking to me on the screen. So you've been in the Navy for over 15 years now.
16. Yeah.
So, oh my gosh. Oh,
Yeah.
so tell me about that. I feel like you have this background and you've traveled a bit. So I really want to get to know a little bit about you and like what you've done in the Navy so far and like how that's going.
Before any of the audience turns away, because I feel like Navy is like the lamest branch out of all of them. But then if I told you I do nothing Navy related, you'd be like, what do you mean by that? I'm like, let me sit down, have your tea. I'll explain. It's not because I want to be legitimized as I'm not in the Navy. I am in the Navy. I do wear Navy things, but my role in the Navy is very non-Navy,
Oh, okay.
if I could say so.
So
Um,
you're like a Navy SEAL, right? No.
Yeah, that's what I do. No, so what I do is hospital corpsman work. So people don't know that's like Army talk, 68 whiskey equivalent. But then like I went to further training where I became an independent duty corpsman. But I ended up first joining out of high school 3 months after. I then went boot camp, Great Lakes, Illinois. Then I went to Corps School, which is like our basic AIT training in Great Lakes as well. And then I was so dumb. Like I hate it's funny because people laugh. They're like, how were you in this profession? My family told me when you join the military, get as much free education as possible. Took it literally.
Yeah.
And then they were like, oh, do you want to go further training? And they were like, we'll give you this pharmacy tech training. I didn't know when you got pharmacy tech training, you went and did that job. So I was like, I was counting pills somewhat, but I was doing a lot of inpatient like IV bag making first
Okay.
first couple of years. And I was in San Diego, deployed on the USNS Mercy, which is that big white hospital ship with the crosses on it,
Oh.
and then went to Vietnam, Indonesia, Indonesia, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And then I got stationed in Rota, Spain for 3 years. Went to my training for a year to become an independent duty corpsman. Went to Japan for 4 years, and then now I'm in New England. So
Oh my gosh. Okay. That's quite a ride. And you've held on for this long. What has happened for you to stay in that long? Like you want to do the full 20. And not just that, but like I want to know what is it within that nitty-gritty of day-to-day Navy operations that make you enjoy it or at least tolerate it and keep going?
It was so hilarious. I'll never forget at one of my trainings, there was an E5 that was like our instructor. And one of the students was like, does the BS like get better? And he just cracked up and was like, nah, you just get used to it. It's so, if you do the first 4 or 5 years, like you just now understand what's coming. You're like, okay, they're going to make us clean our weapons. They're going to make us do this cleaning, or they're going to make us do X, Y, or Z. Like you just get used to it. And then you're like, it doesn't really matter anymore.
Okay.
So, yeah, I don't want to say I planned to do 20. I really didn't. I think it was by necessity. A lot of people coming in the military, they're usually leaving something that, unless you're an officer, right? Usually, if you're enlisted, you're going away from something to find something else. And so I didn't really have anything back home. I didn't really have anyone that was like, hey, man, if you got out today, I would help you out. So it was like, where am I going to go? Like I had no plan. And it's hard to say like at 23 when my contract was ending, or let's be honest, like 22 when I would be planning like, yeah, I'm just going to go find a place to live and never been on my own besides the military. So there was that, but it was also, I got orders to Spain. So I was like, all right, you can't really say no to that. And so, yeah. And then I was suckered in because I said I'd done everything I wanted to do. And so I was like, why would I get out when everything I've said I wanted to do, I've achieved? And so I was like, then why would I leave if I'm seeing progress or I'm seeing these goals that are met? And it's so contrary to what I am now and what my beliefs are, like, because it's definitely one of those things that, like, I think all of us have a plan. Like we love to say, like, we're in the legacy of, I want to do 20 years. I want to be this or that or this rank. And as you go up, you're like, none of that matters really. Like the day we all leave, you're Jess, I'm Nicky. It's irrelevant. I think sometimes people forget that.
Yeah, there is a lot of attachment to the identity with the military as a whole. And so that's why a lot of folks have difficulty transitioning, because it's not just like that day to day, it's like that attachment, that uniform, that pride, all of that. And that's really good that you see that now. A lot of people still don't get out of that. It can be very egotistical. It can be very much ego tripping with rank structure. And it's really good that you've kept like a humble approach to it, as well as I'm sure that throughout all of these years, you've seen a lot of your friends transition out. It is that unfortunate truth that a lot of people don't care that you were in the military. And it's not in necessarily like a disrespectful way. It's just more of, hey, that's cool. Thank you for your service. But you're competing with everybody else and you're not entitled to anything. I mean that in a very respectful way. So it's good that you see that. I think it also helps people carry themselves a little better. You don't have your head up your ass, or you're not a shitbag either. That legacy that you leave behind, it does matter to an extent. You know what I mean? Like whether you stay for 20 or you do one contract, the military world is a very small world. People will know how you were, who you were, like that.
Your character, I tell everybody, your reputation starts the day you arrive at boot camp. The day you arrive there, you think of somebody you remember from boot camp. Now, like you may have ran into somebody that you're like, Steven sucks. You know what I mean? Like it's just, that's what it was. The biggest compliment I typically get, and this is not because I want to blow ego up my own rear end, but I've had people, they're like, dude, you're just like the videos. And I was like, I don't know how to be anybody else, dude. Like, you film hundreds of videos. Eventually, you just have to fucking talk like a normal person.
Yeah.
I'm not like, hey, guys, check out this crazy ship that I'm going to go float on. Like that, I'm animated already. So it's one of those things I'm like, I don't really know what that would be. And then like some junior people, they're like, you're so unapologetically yourself though. In some ways, like rough around the edges, but I'm not in that way that where it's like, I'm an asshole. I'm just forthcoming with what I think and my belief system that's there. I'm not willing to compromise those things for really anything. That voice is something I've had to develop. I think that, like you doing this podcast or me doing my channel, like a lot of people have found their voice, and that's important to have. And the value of that is really important. That I look at how many people are willing to bite their tongue and not say anything for what? Like, why not? Why not say your thoughts? Why not speak your mind? I think it causes a lot of inappropriate silence in spaces that shouldn't have silence. We're seeing the ramifications of that in so many different areas of, military, the world in general, where it's like, man, if everyone just talked about how crazy this was, like male SA issues, right? Like we talk about that, where you're like, no one's talking about that, but now it's, oh, maybe we probably should have said something. Maybe the Nickelodeon star should have said something. People don't just act mean for no reason. Typically, there's usually some backstory, and whether you're able to get that or not, that's upon the person who want to share. But usually, people are not mean for no reason. You got to dig a little deeper and figure that out. And yeah, I like to do that. That's what I get into, and I'm unapologetic about it. And a lot of people like the advice I give at work and stuff, but I wish I could duplicate myself and talk to myself sometimes, because I need to self-talk.
Yeah, yeah, the relationship and the tone and voice that you have with yourself is just as
Yeah.
important as the one that you have with others. Trust me, I feel like sometimes I shot myself in the foot with calling this podcast Resilient and Rowdy, because some days I don't feel resilient. I'm just like, fuck, I can't go out that way. That's not very resilient and rowdy. But I think what you mentioned of whether or not you're in uniform or in just your cozy clothes or you're out on the street, you are who you are and you're unapologetic about it. And I really admire that, especially in the sense of, yes, you are a military man. And sometimes it can be very difficult to at least let those layers unfold. So it's something that you said that you've had to work on, I'm sure, like with your identity in the military and also just as a man, as a person. Can you go into what you had to do to get to that point? Is it with age? Is it with experience? Is it learning to love yourself?
I will say, I think a lot of it was you get told what not to do, but not what to do. And so I feel like operating out of fear is always the worst place to be in. So for me, when I read something, I'm like, well, you're saying I can't do this, can't do that, can't do this, or X, Y, or Z, but I can do this. So why don't we advocate on that? And I think there's a fearful idea where it's just, there's a lot of people that are risk adverse, and I'm just not one of those people. I grew up in a trailer park. I grew up in Southern Maryland, where like every reason, statistically speaking, I should not be where I'm at. I should not be as successful as I am. I should not have the degrees I do. I should not have the life I have. And that's not to discredit my hard work, but that's, I'm not getting another shot at this. Like there's no do-overs, and I'm not here to be like David Goggins, keep going or whatever, but it's
Carry the boats.
yeah, carry the boats. I don't want to live in regret. And I really don't. And to say, people are like, I don't regret anything. I'm like, we all regret certain things, or like maybe minute things, like not the overarching story, but the details. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to say it would change everything, but I think some minute details would have made the creature comforts a little bit better going up through this process. Now, what made me, there's just a point where arming yourself with knowledge, arming yourself with people around you that are going to support you. I've been made fun of so much for YouTube or whatever, that I was the youngest kid of 4 kids growing up. I'm used to being picked on. I'm used to being the little rascal. So the words, sometimes it would get to me, but I'm like, and this is my life. Like, I'm the one that deals with the ramifications. Just like if you decide to not work out, or I don't know, not eat right, or go jump off a bridge, like whatever ramification comes from those things, it's what you can live with. If you can live with that, go with it. That's all. I think it's hard because there is no black and white. There's always a downside. And just living with those decisions, I always will tell people, they're like, I made a bad choice. I'm like, no, you probably didn't. You probably just made the best choice you had with the information you had at that time. So yeah, now 10 years later, yeah, you would have done things differently. But 10 years ago, you didn't have the information. So why are you beating yourself up over it?
Yeah, I get that. And it's just one of those things that you don't really come to terms with until a little bit later on, when you do have that knowledge, when you do have that kind of seasoning. And we can play like the shoulda, coulda, woulda game all you want. And trust me, I'm very guilty of that. I'm a very nostalgic hoe. I love the past. I love history. I love looking back on things, sometimes with rose colored glasses, and sometimes
Same.
you just got to take them off. But I like what you said, that I'm also the youngest child, and I'm used to that too. Also, I'm like the weird cat girl from school. There's no like trajectory with that. So I feel like people are constantly like impressed and also maybe a little intimidated that the weird cat girl can do this, that, and the third. But at the end of the day, that's me. Like you said, life is short. And depending on your beliefs, some people think that they're going to reincarnate or come back. I personally think that I'm given this one life, and I've spent enough time like denying myself and being like, no, I should tone it down. Maybe I should be normal. Maybe I should be quiet. And then I'm just like, but why? Because as outgoing as I am, I love my downtime. I love peace and quiet. Now that I've really worked on myself, I don't cause drama. I respond to it. And that's one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to respond. Now I feel empowered enough to be able to be like, you know what? No, girl, fuck you. Who do you think you are being able to talk to me like that? Like, I'm not doing anything to you. I'm just being weird on the internet. Why do you care
Yeah.
so much? And I'm sure that over the years, with like your career in the military, you're often critiqued. You have that evaluation every month. On top of you are put in positions where you are going to be scrutinized more. But I feel
Mhm.
like you carry yourself very well. And also, yes, it comes with age. Like the person that you are now in the Navy, you weren't there obviously as a young, what are the ranks? Seaman?
I yes, technically correct, but it would have been hospitalman for us. But yeah, I
Hospital.
get what you're saying. I think it does puzzle people because there is military bearing, but I'm not going to come at you like a robot either. I think that gets lost, and I'm like, we all have a job to do, and I'm doing my job. This is my scope of where I'm at, and I'm confident in that. You were talking about like, you're going to be evaluated and judged, and I'm like, in my eyes, I tell people, I'm like, if you just want a paycheck, you can just show up. You can. I'm not mad if you just show up. You came here to show up, do the job, pass your fitness test, whatever the hell you had to do, and go home. Like, I'm not going to make you go above and beyond. If that's all you want to do, tell me that. I'm okay. That way I know how to manage expectations. The other thing is I tell people our evaluations are not your value. It is what someone above you. Did you do what they wanted you to do? That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
Now, if my values were family and yours is work as my boss, and I'm going to Jimmy's soccer practice 3 times a week and I'm not staying late for work, we just have different values and that will reflect. That's
Hmm.
okay. As long as I can live with that, wrapping back to that, you just wrap back to it. That's it.
Okay.
Um, and so I'm a very pragmatic person when it comes to that. And I like the discourse and conversation. And that's where I think some people, like when they see me post stuff on YouTube or whatever, they're like, you're just hating, or you're just, I'm like, no, these conversations need to happen, and they're
Hmm.
not. And so I like having them. And for me, that friction point is not where I'm like, oh, let me poke the bear. It's more like, let's just be real for a second.
Hmm.
And because I think we have too many competing interests that it gets lost. Like the meaning of the conversations of what are happening online, a lot of times get lost. And that's just not even with the topics I cover, you cover. It's just like in general.
So yeah, like the kind of the art of conversation. And I think it also touches a little bit about like sociology. I feel like sometimes people miss that we're human beings. We're here to do what it is, but the underlying purpose of humanity is to populate and evolve. We're doing the populating. I'm seeing a little bit of butting heads with the evolving, right? And I feel like when we don't have these discussions, people don't learn. And I know that while I'm not a parent yet, I don't know, I would, if it's my kids or my nephew or whomever, like the whole purpose of creating life is to for improve society and continue the human race. But I wouldn't want like my son or my nephew to repeat the same mistakes I have made. And that comes with discourse, that comes with conversation. And I always felt like in so many ways, especially through the media, Yes, there is always going to be a little bit of a bias, right? But sometimes the
Mhm.
intent is very crucial. And so when you see that the intent is just to have dialogue, to have conversation, be like, hey, this is how I feel. This is how I think. This is how my neurons are popping off. Like, where are you at? What do you think? And it's not, again, people just assume it's just hating. It's more of, no, I have this opinion. What do we do with it? And how can you settle that train of thought to either come to a conclusion or just leave it as is. So yes, unfortunately that can be really difficult to pick up on, especially through social media. I also feel like after the pandemic, we became more connected online and more disconnected in reality, and I feel like that kind of has something to do with it. You have this background too, and it adds to that discourse. The military does sometimes bring in a variety of folks, and especially being in the Navy and with your travels, I feel like you've come across a lot of different kinds of people. And I feel like just your open mindedness reflects that. But I don't know if, who am I to say to credit to that? But that's just like my assumption. I feel like you're educated, you carry yourself well, you have an open mind, you're able to have your own personality and persona outside of the uniform. And sometimes a lot of people assume that your internet personality is just that. It's just an internet personality. They don't see
Yeah.
that. Very rarely is it like, hey, this is me. This is just the channel. I also wear another uniform, but I don't let that define me. And I feel like that kind of, when people understand that about you, I feel that's given you a really good reputation. And so I'm sure that with
Yeah.
that, it's, I'm not sure if that's like a heavy burden to bear, if you consider it a burden or like an honor, but I feel you've never intentionally gone out of your way to do harm. You know what I mean? It's just typical banter. You're putting the conversations that we have, like in the squad bay or the poop deck, I don't know where y'all are at.
Yeah.
You're just putting those conversations up on YouTube. And I think that
Yeah.
it's very refreshing.
The thing about it is the people I work with, it's funny how like after I've worked with them, they're like, "Oh yeah, that's just what he does at home." Like it's so annoying because and I understand the real world and the internet do this. They intertwine. I understand that. But I'm like, I'll have patients or people that I see where I'm like, I'm here to talk about you. I appreciate it. I will say this, and this is not even HIPAA related, so don't nobody be mad. But I do feel like I get recognized usually when it's something genitalia related, and I don't understand why that is. It goes from I know you from YouTube to like this is something very sensitive. I'm like, these aren't gonna cross over. So when you say is that a burden? I would say yes because the fact that like when I see somebody in real life and I am doing that job, that role, not being the person on the internet, which is my private life, I have to respect their privacy in their life. And that's why people are like, why don't you vlog about your life? This was like 7 years ago when everybody was like, show us what you do at work. I'm like, I can't. I literally cannot. And I respect that. And I'm not going to tell you guys stories of it because imagine if you saw me that morning and I go home and I made a video about your issue, like that would be messed up. That's a huge ethical and legal issue. Even if I'm not giving names or whatever, like you just lose trust from that. But I feel confident with my little thing. I was just like, that's the irony I see of my life intermingling. And then the other thing is I'll have people where they're like, is that the guy from YouTube? They don't come to me, obviously. They talk to somebody else. Is that,
Okay.
is that him? And then they're like, yeah, we just work with him. Like that's it. I'm like, cool. And it was hilarious. One of the guys I worked with in Japan, he's like, dude, I had this negative thing I thought about you before I even met you. I was like, this guy's so into himself. And he's like, I met you. And he was like, I realized you're just a person. And maybe, and he was like, honestly, ever since I met you, I now have thought when I watch somebody and I maybe have that thought, I'm like, they could be like Nick, dude. They could just be a person that likes to make videos. And that's
That's all there is
really
to
it.
it. Yeah, it's like, let's not complicate it. I feel like sometimes people look too much into a meeting, and trust me, I can say that because I overthinker here, amateur philosopher, but it's just not that deep. And that's funny that you say that because sometimes I feel like I'm very cognizant of that, and so when I meet people in real life, like when when I meet people in real life,
Mhm.
when I
Yeah.
meet, and when I meet other creators too, it's like we've talked online, that's totally fine, but sometimes like when I'm in person with people, like even going to SHOT Show earlier this year, I need to be able to feel out the vibes and see if I feel comfortable being
Mhm.
myself in front of you. I can be a ding dong on the internet, I can yap all I want, but when I'm meeting somebody, and this also happened recently, and I felt so bad because I'm like, okay, two things are going to happen. One or of two things are going to happen. I'm going to be
Yeah.
quiet and weird, or I'm going to be loud and weird. So,
Just be weird. And that
yeah, but it's also feeling out the vibe. Do I feel safe being weird near you, or are you going to be like a negative Nancy? Not that I
well,
really care. It's more of, okay, I'm just going to make sure to not like make chicken noises in front of you. And I'm just going to go make chicken noises to my friend Lindsay over here. She'll enjoy them. You can go fuck off.
I say this to this day. I think you are sitting on chicken content. I'm not lying. I truthfully believe you need an Instagram dedicated to chickens. That would be just your thing because there's not much on it. I think you can be quirky with it. I really do. I think there's an audience there because I watch it. I'm like, this is hilarious.
Oh,
I
thank
find
you.
enjoyment out of it because I'm like, it looks like you're having fun. And so people want that and
Mm.
finding the fun in the nuance.
Yeah.
You said before we were filming, I could ask you questions.
Yeah, you
Which
can.
military creator were you like nervous to meet, like that you met or that you think you'd be nervous to meet? And this is just shouting them out. You don't have to have met them yet, but actually, that could be two questions. Who would you like to meet up with, military creator wise, and who have you been nervous to meet?
Ooh, okay. Okay, who I would like to meet, Matt from Matt's All Right. He's hilarious.
Okay, yeah.
And who I've been nervous to meet. A scale, I feel like I was definitely very nervous meeting and talking to Lamb from Ronin Tactics. I was super honored, but knowing me, I'm interviewing these people. I would try to keep it lighthearted. I try to see if
Mhm.
maybe I could come up with some jokes. And thankfully, my friend took me aside and she was like, "Hey, he's very easygoing, but he's the stoic, quiet, serious type." And she had heard me come up with some things to say to him, maybe. And she was like, "Don't
Mhm.
call him that." I was like, "Okay, so don't call him two chains."
Yeah,
Okay. I
no, I
think he
got
would
you.
have been honored to be called two chains. He should have gone by, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, I was very
Yeah.
nervous meeting him just because, yeah, just very intellectual. Yes, he's got very impressive like accolades, sure. But intellectually, I feel like that is somebody who I really would love to pick apart, like not necessarily even on the podcast, but just an intimate conversation and ask him like his insight on certain things. I really respect people that can have that profound and like deep conversation with me. So yeah, and he was actually really cool. So yeah, thank you for asking me that. I
Yeah,
appreciate
no,
it.
I find it funny because I've had a lot of internet friends that are like
Mm.
military creators, and it's interesting to me because like people ask, I was asked the other day this question. They were like, "Is there like a secret circle of military people?" I was like, "Not really, dude. I've talked to this person or that person." To me, it's not like there are circles within the communities of any community that you're talking about online, but I was like,
Yeah.
it's just funny. You just bond with people because you're creators. Like Austin Alexander, me and him talked for 5 years over the phone. Like he would call me on night shift while he was in Japan. Yeah, and we would
Oh my God.
send sexy photos back and forth. But then I didn't meet him for 5 years, and I went to San Diego. I was like, "Hey, dude, I'm in San Diego." I was like, "Come to my house," and that was it. Like we hung out. I stayed at his house the night, and that was it.
Okay. Yeah,
So
that's awesome though. So you said that it was strictly like an online friendship at first, right?
yeah, 100%.
And you stayed over at this dude's house. See, nowhere else could that be okay. You know what I mean?
I
There's
mean, it
that
was
level of
just
trust.
it was one of those things where we would just spitball YouTube ideas back and forth and
Okay.
like thoughts, and he would teach me things, and I would tell him my thoughts on certain things and like why things would work or not work. And it was pretty cool to see that development. And then we haven't stayed in touch much now that he's back stateside and I'm doing work my own stuff, but like we still text every once in a while. And the creator space is definitely small for a lot of people. And
Yeah.
so I respect somebody said this. They're like, did you ever feel like you wanted to be part of those bigger circles? And I said, at one point, yes, I did. But I said, I also wasn't going to go out of my way to befriend these people because I knew I would probably talk about them at one point on the channel, and that would affect my ability to try and be as unbiased as possible. And then
Yeah.
if you know too many people, you're having to give all these caveats, and I technically know them because I hung out with them or I did this. Like, I didn't want it to be all of that, even though I do like the community as a whole. So yeah.
So you started your channel back in
2017.
what made you want to start it? I think you touched on it a little bit earlier, like wanting to have these conversations just like publicly, but were there other intentions? Were there other ideas? Maybe like just seeing where it goes?
I had always taken like photo and filmed my skateboarding as a little skater kid. And then I was like, I'm not good at skateboarding anymore. Like, I can't, it's not riding a bike. Like, you have to keep doing it a lot.
Yeah.
And so I was like, and I had no friends to film me doing that. And then I was like, oh, I can edit, I can do this. Then I realized that this is the start of military influencer. Like, we're talking about combat vet, Yusha Thomas, like beginning Facebook days. I was like,
Oh my
this
God.
is cool. I'm going to do this. But I was like, I could never do that. And then on YouTube, I was like, oh, there's a big gap of information. And I just wanted to fill it. I'd been in 8 years at that point. And I was like, all right, because I felt like there were a lot of people in their barracks rooms like, hey, just graduated boot camp. Make sure you wash your armpits. And you're like, dude, okay, cool. But like I think there were a lot of
Yeah.
other things that were, and I don't think everyone needs to cite their sources, but where I just saw people just speaking out, just like out of, I know a buddy that did this. And I'm like, Google, here, I'll show you this resource. And so I got burnt out on information. So then when COVID happened, it was all about news stuff. And I pivoted and I used stories to give factual information, provide information on the back end. So if you saw my videos, it was always like, here's what's going on. Here's the information of like the facts. Here's my opinion. What do you think? That is the entire act. I didn't really do much. And did that help for retention time and stuff on YouTube? Not really, but I just want to talk about it. So I will say, if you want, like when people are like, you're doing things to be a big creator, I'm like, you're talking about the US population specifically, then 1% of that, which is military. It's not that many people that are interested in this content. If I want to be big and famous, I would make Minecraft videos or something like that. There's a bigger audience there. So I don't know. It's crazy.
I think sometimes like folks just assume that putting yourself out there on the internet is just for like fame or for clout. But when you get down to it, especially like if you're one of those chronically online people, you just see how, like you said, you saw a gap and you just wanted to fill it. And also just be one of the people that puts good stuff out there, like real stuff out there. And again, importantly, like the facts and the information. Anyone can spew out an opinion. Anyone can repeat Reddit comment. Having that banter, having that discourse, I think is really important. I think what was like kind of a shock to me was just entering the army and seeing a certain kind of culture and a certain kind of energy towards social media, and then getting out and then just seeing this explosion of the opposite, and that just blew my shit. I think I was just like impressed, a little jealous. Like I kept telling my family, they're like, oh, send pictures, and I'm like, if they see me catching or taking a selfie, like I'm gonna get my ass beat. That's the kind of environment I was in, and that was such a bummer because I felt like at that time I definitely could have, at least like you're doing, put some good stuff out there, put something useful, so that other people don't have to learn the hard way. At least that's my approach. I feel like I always learn things the hard way, or I'm given a hard time, and that's fine. It builds character, right? We say that. But I don't want that for the next person. Like life is already hard enough. Let me at least like ease that difficulty for you just a little bit. That's
I feel like that's my own red flag of myself is I feel like I've suffered enough that no one else should have to suffer. And what's annoying is I have been in long enough now that I see patterns continuing. I'm like,
Mm.
I think
Yeah.
humans are getting better overall, but then I still see shitty behavior, shitty parenting. What's crazy to me is I sit here where I'm like, I receive people that not from New York City. We're talking about like people from middle of nowhere. I'm like, do you have a driver's license? They're like, I don't. I'm like, we got to teach you how to drive. Why? You can't get around without a license, man. Let's
Oh,
figure this out. Okay.
yeah.
How do I buy a car? You end up becoming a life coach, jokingly. I know that gets thrown around in spheres where people are laughing about life coach stuff. I think you could be life coached by a lot of people. Just pick what you want from those people.
Right.
I have something that I wanted to ask you because it is okay to fake it. Okay. We have faked it. We're not speaking in the dirty context. We're talking about in just life in general. Okay.
Mhm.
Faking it, you said you don't always feel resilient or like rowdy. Is there a point in your life where were you the most proud of your resilience?
I think the fact that I'm still here.
Mhm.
Like, I haven't given up, and for a while, it was like, "Okay, I didn't plan on making it this far and getting this age," and then I'm like sometimes hit with some hard questions. I do love these deep conversations and deep topics and stuff, so I appreciate when the questions are asked on me. I was at a very broken state when somebody asked me, they were like, "Hey, what's your 5-year plan?" And I genuinely just started to cry because I just didn't see myself or want to see myself still alive in 5 years. I was hurting that much. And
Mhm.
so I think to get to where I am is I didn't give up on myself. Maybe to an extent I did previously, but I was like, you know what? It doesn't have to be this way. I'm seeing so many people, whether in the context of other immigrants or other veterans or other sexual assault survivors just living their best lives. And I'm like questioning myself because I often do that, especially in the lens of what I'm seeing on social media. Is this real? Are they genuinely living their best lives? I want to believe it. And I'm going to go with it. I'm going to run with it. I'm going to sit down and say that, yeah, this girl named Heather who talks about her story and says that she's doing good and she's married and she has kids and she has a really good life despite going through this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I want that. But trauma tells you no, or you don't deserve that, or whatever else. And so I just hit a point where I was like, you know what? Like, I'm feeling really down on myself. I'm heartbroken. I'm hurt. I have very severe trust issues. And I really need to do something about that because the quality
Mhm.
of my life right now is just absolute shite. And I don't want to keep living this way. And sometimes every now and then I get a little sprinkle of spite and that just ignites it more. It's, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. Like this
Yeah.
person was like, wow, you don't even have a 5-year plan. And they just, I think they could see the brokenness in me, but given the person that was asking that, they have also been through a lot of things. And
Mhm.
sometimes that either makes you very sympathetic or sometimes it makes you very cold. I admire this person to an extent, right? I'm like, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. I'm going to have a 5-year plan. I'm going to live a fulfilling life. But that's what resilience means to me right now is I sat down with myself. I did a hard audit. I was like, you know what? Let's see what we can do. I put the work in my late 20s because I thought, oh, let me do this by 30. And I turned 30 this year. And thankfully, I feel really good. I feel a lot better. There's still a lot of work to do, but I'm glad that I did it. And I'm glad that I didn't give up on myself again.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's just been what I've been telling myself is that I'm happy, hurting, healing all at the same time some days. And that's okay. And sometimes that's what resilience looks like.
I think what's really crazy because I went to this mental health like outpatient retreat kind of thing. We in our brains, we try and treat ourselves like computers where we're like, I am happy. And you're like, no, dude, you can be happy and sad at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's conflicting, but that's you like letting stuff come in. And those are skills not many people really let develop. Like, check in on yourself. How many people stand up first thing in the morning and they're on this? And then it's what if you spent one day and you were like, or 1 minute even to be like, what do I feel right now? I'm stressed because I do have that thing coming up. I have that task. I don't really want to see that boss. That boss sucks. oh, but I am going to get my coffee. And I love when I get my coffee. It's going to feel so good. And then you're like, what? Where? How do I get from hating my boss to loving coffee? But those can be within moments within each other or even at the same time. And I think that as I get older, I get a lot of grace. For myself, I'm trying to give myself more grace and grace of others. I think it's hard too, because when you have learned so much, and I get why old people can be bitter, it's hard because you want people to listen to your advice. You're like, I want you to get there. I can teach you that. But these are humans. They have emotions. You can't just say, do step A, B, C and expect it to go that way. It's okay. Sometimes people got to touch the hot stove, and I touch a hot stove sometimes, and I learned pretty good from those mistakes.
Yeah, I feel that. I've definitely got some burn marks to show for that.
Oh, yeah.
And I really relate to that. And I think that sometimes, at least at the end of the day, I feel like I did something. I tried. You can lead a horse to water. You can't force him to drink. But I know that there's somebody out there that feels the way that I feel. And I hope that they're listening. And I hope that I can make life just a little bit better. But with that, I had to write a speech for my graduation. And I knew that people were going to be like, oh, it's going to be funny. Like, it's Jess, whatever. And I'm like, it was. I'm out at the end. But I wanted to make it profound because I'm like, dang, this is a huge honor. Like, I really need to take this opportunity. And unfortunately, these words have haunted me for over a decade now. And I've really been feeling it, especially in the sense of turning 30, all of the advice that my friends and family have been giving me. Like every now and then I'll just sit with myself and I just get a wave of what somebody told me and just feeling comfort and like reassurance and validation in that moment. But that's what kind of gives me an open mind of you don't know what you don't know. Be approachable, be teachable, because you never know like when someone's going to tell you something that kind of rewires things or helps you out. But the quote is advice like youth is often wasted on the young. And so if someone's coming to you with advice, they're a little bit older or maybe a little more experienced, maybe the same age as you or younger. Like we've all lived different lives. And I think that's why I love the military veteran community so much is there's just this influx of variety, like a melting pot. But when somebody comes to you with advice, you can take it with a grain of salt, but at least hear them out. Because sometimes when people are giving you tidbits of advice and stuff, it's them talking to their past selves and they want better for you.
What I do in those moments too, when I know we felt some resistance when you give advice, and I'm like reverse engineer for 1 second. Like I have junior soldier or sailors, whatever they are at the moment, where I'll even give dating advice. I say, because I love it. I made some mistakes, right? And definitely. And I always go to, I'm not fucking you. I'm not getting laid by you. I'm not getting my dinner paid by you. Nothing. So I have zero to gain from this instance than me just trying to help you out. I have nothing to gain. And so I tell them that not to be like, oh, my point is now more valid because of that. But I'm like, that way, when you're looking at this, it's more objectified than it is. I'm not emotionally involved in any of this. I have no emotions to gain other than feeling better when you feel better.
Yeah.
That's it. And so it is hard to do that and give that advice.
But I hear that sometimes on your channel, it's just some dumb boot will do some bullshit and you're just talking about it and you're putting out the facts. And I love how you add the online discourse because sometimes the comment section of our community can be pretty hilarious. But again, you have good intention behind it. Sometimes the content writes itself, right?
Oh, 100%.
Boot gets arrested. There's a video, there's comments, like, and you just put it out there and it's so much fun. But this is a good learning lesson too. Here's an example, like the military loves to make examples out of people and life in general too.
What's scary is where people are willing to put things out for notoriety without understanding the ramifications of what that means in the real world. Oh, and I'm like, ooh, they did this. Take it down.
Okay, what video or situation came to mind when you just said that? Because I already know one video that you posted that I want to.
I'm trying to think. I will say this. Everyone thinks I'm out to get some kind of story every time. There have been times where I've found something. I tell somebody, take this down. Because I'm willing to tell somebody like, hey, man, I'm seeing this. And I say it to help people out. There were times where I'm like, man, I don't have a video to make. And then I'm like, that's a good thing I don't have a video to make, because it means people are probably not messing up. That means people are
Yes.
doing something good.
Or they're not caught yet.
Yeah, they're not caught yet. It ebbs and flows. Like, I
Yeah.
can't expect to every day have something. Some days there's more
Okay.
than others, and I try and pick and choose of what I cover. I don't think I will go back, because I've had people be like, well, I don't like this video or something. And I'm like, and obviously I'm watching it again with a bias of I sometimes will have a shield up and I'm like, Nick, put down the fucking shield, rewatch the video, try and absorb what they're saying. And then there's times where I'm like, they missed this part of the video where I said that thing about they're talking about this. Okay. Maybe people are not listening, and you can underanalyze, analyze perfectly, or overanalyze. And sometimes it can happen all at the same time, depending on the audience that's there.
I think that's really good. Respectfully, you have a big following, a big channel, like very successful, which by the way, you won Military YouTuber of the Year in 2019. I remember celebrating you like crazy because you deserved it. But it's really awesome to hear that you will go out of your way, just as Nikki, not as whatever your rank is in the Navy.
I don't even want to tell you or correct you what it is, but I'm being honest. I respect what the rank is, but I'm like, if I ever interact with somebody and that is where I am approaching somebody with, I'm like, I'm already losing.
Yeah.
Right? I don't like that.
And I don't think you even need to. I feel like your character as a man speaks very highly of like where you're coming from. So like that situation is you're approaching that person who posted a really dumb video. You're just approaching them as Nikki. Hey, dude, like you need to take this down. And I value that.
I get it, because I realize that I'm the energy I put out into the world. And so for me, I respect that my face is out there. And there's times I will do the banter, I'll do the low hanging fruit joke. There's definitely times that can happen, right?
Yeah.
But I want you to know that's me doing like a long, come on, Slugger. Yeah, like usually it's not me in ill intent. And if you're watching it coming, I've got my shield, I got my sword. Of course, some things will come across very much like that. And I've had people make videos about me too, and I'm just like, this is what it is. Like, I've opened Pandora's box. That's where I'm at. What video were you thinking that I was talking about where take it down?
The TikTok video of what was it? Was it a captain counseling her soldier? I don't remember the rank, but just it was two army chicks. One of them was counseling the other, and she live streamed it.
I didn't make a video about that one because I was already down by that point. But
okay.
I will tell you, yes, I did see that. I think that's the hardest thing, is watching it all unfold, where you're like, man, this is hard. And the reality is, my videos, factually speaking, have been used as instructional videos. I'm not shitting you. Instructional videos of things not to do, of how to look at it. Like, there was somebody that was like, your videos were used at a staff NCO academy on how to legally, like, legal and ethical considerations when doing things, and you cited the source that they were using in the video. And I'm like, wow, it's almost like I didn't talk out of my ass. It's so hard because I'm not perfect. I'm not trying to be perfect in this world. Like, you can't expect perfection. I know a lot of people, before they upload something, they think about that. I am more like, I'll fix something if that's the case. I'll take it down and re-upload if I have to. Or I'll make a pinned comment or something. And people have their varying degrees of what they accept is editing or editor notes or whatever. I think that's something we're navigating in social media even now. Do you edit the comments, or do you just make a note of update on the comment? Do you put in the description? Do you take the whole video down and put it back up? I think we are coming into an ethical, legal, and moral dilemma with that as well.
Yeah. And I definitely relate to that, because when I was first approached about starting on this podcast, not mine, but the one that I started on, I was like, yeah, sure. Like, I love the yap. I feel really unprepared with this. Like, I was currently in college. I was like, this isn't my major. Like, I'm not communications. I'm not journalism. And I value that a lot because of at least in my opinion, seeing certain things in the media growing up and how I knew that it was harmful, and just feeling that weight is like that responsibility of the information that you put out there can be detrimental. Someone can be taking it very literally or in whatever context. And it's up to you as the person to navigate through that. And so I'm like, okay, sure. But I I don't have a background in this. And then also feeling pressured, especially as a woman veteran, to discuss certain topics. And I'm just like, I can put the news out there, but morally and ethically, people don't consider those two things sometimes. They just want to put it out there and get the clout and get likes and whatever.
I think that gets lost in a lot of it.
Yeah.
One of the things the most proud I've ever been, one of the most proud moments I've ever had was my coverage of Stuart Scheller and the Marine that was like against
Oh.
the Afghan pullout. Everything I covered, I broke down all of his little chess piece moves and everything. He reached out to me to talk because he was like, you did a better job than X, Y, and Z. Like, you truthfully were looking at anything I was trying to do. And he was like, that's why I reached out for an interview. Because I was like, this guy obviously gets it. And he's not just here to get, like, you're there to get clicks because you make something because you want to share it.
Yeah.
But I think it's so hard because the term news or the term drama, I think, are somehow in people's brains split like this. But I'm like, they're much more blurred than people think.
Mm-hmm.
And it is funny that you were like, you said something to like, you are not a communications major or journalism. And I'm like, I'm not either, but I can read, I can comprehend, I can talk, I can edit. I have all these other skills that maybe I didn't go to this school for.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying those credentials don't matter. They
Mm-hmm.
teach you a lot of tactics and techniques to do things.
Yeah.
But with anything, you could write the perfect piece that follows every rule book and still not be a good piece. You
Yeah.
could find a piece that follows none of the rules and it's a great piece.
Yeah.
And so these are not hard and true things. Like, people ask me how to make a YouTube video that pops off or does this or that. I'm like, you could do X, Y, and Z and it not get anything. And you can do X, Y, and Z that is against the rules and it gets 1 million views. Like the car wash videos, the detailing videos. I watch those.
Those are great.
Does it follow the YouTube rules? Not at all.
Oh,
Not at
really?
all.
Oh, I didn't know that. What do you mean?
There's not a hook. If you think about it, maybe you get a hook of, oh, look
Oh.
how dirty it is. And then you
Mhm.
just see the progress. So it doesn't provide much reward throughout the video, right?
Okay.
To keep you there. So what you'll see is a lot of people will watch the beginning and skip to the end, maybe. It's a choose your own adventure. Do you want to watch
Mm.
it regular speed, 2x speed? Do you want to only watch the outside? You want to watch inside? There's a lot of layers to it as someone that binges the content. So,
I was about to say, I sometimes to watch carpets being cleaned.
yep. Really into cobblers or that fix
Ooh.
the soles of shoes.
Shoes, yes. It's an
Yeah.
art. It's so interesting. But I think I only said that because I wasn't sure like what would be put out there. Again, this was the start of my podcasting career, and essentially it ended up being nothing like that. I think I was overthinking it per usual.
Hmm.
And it's more of, hey, like just exploit your life. And that was the time to do it, was during those years. And so people were like, there weren't a lot of women veteran creators at that time anyway. So it was just the right time and place. And it was a lot of fun.
I was gonna poke fun at you. Say, no, this is good. I was gonna say you missed your mark though. You could have been in curves and combat boots. That was a thing, right? To get that veteran female space, get those followers.
You know what? I'm glad that I accidentally deleted my Instagram account, because when I was doing that in those spaces, I realized, and this is just something that
So you did do curves and combat boots.
no,
Okay, I was curious. You made it sound like you did that, so I felt
no. It falls under the same, I don't know what to call it.
By the way, I wasn't. I was backtracking because I didn't want to be
Oh,
offensive.
no, no,
So I
no,
was
you're
like,
good.
what?
No, it falls under the facade of people see a niche, and sometimes their intentions are good, sometimes it's not. And I
Mhm.
fell for it. I thought I was walking into a women veteran empowered movement and space. And that's all I've ever wanted, is friendship. Again, I've been through enough bullshit that
Mhm.
I don't go out of my way to cause drama, start shit. I'll finish it, but I just want camaraderie. I just want friendship. I want women that understand me. And then I get into that space and I realize that it's nothing of that sort. And I'm like, I found good, solid people. I got some friends out of this. I lived and I learned, but I'm walking out. I don't need this. Bad enough to myself. I don't need to hear or get bashed on by other women and then turn around and make posts about leggings like, oh yeah, the empowerment legging. Just like, girl, okay, whatever.
It's funny, I haven't thought about that Instagram page in years until right now talking about it, where I'm just like, oh, I remember that.
Speaking of, I do wish that you still had your channel. I think we should talk about that. I think people think that you're out getting out a gallon of milk, maybe picking up a pack of cigarettes. Is dad gonna come home?
Maybe.
Or
I'm drinking tea, so this is suiting for the time. Okay.
I mean, I only mention that because who there is news, but again, I don't know who could put it out there. And then I'm like, oh, Nikki. And then you're on a break right now. If you can talk about it, let's just
Talk about it. Essentially, I'm gonna be broad, but I think it's gonna be specific enough that people will be able to interpret what they can interpret from it. And it's because of a few reasons, right? I will say the way regulations are written right now could be interpreted in a lot of different ways. You could go high to the right, or you got people twerking in uniform, right? I am not doing the twerking, obviously.
you should.
I should. So there was that. And so essentially I made a piece of content that I still to this day believe is worthy. I rewatched it and I was really defending the Department of Defense. And that was actually what was found in some of it. And that kind of bothers me because I was like, wait, we're on the same team. Like I really thought that. And so somebody was not happy with that. I don't know who that is, and that's fine. I don't think that adds value to my case or whatever. And I think if you do try and go through those channels and figure out, it's not worth it. Now, I was required to take it down, not just that video, but everything. And so I followed that. That was before I got lawyers involved and stuff like that. And essentially, I can be back up right now. I could be back up as we speak. And I will come back up when the time is ready because I believe that my metric or my calibration of what is allowed and not allowed has been really skewed by people which this is my assumption. I think that they are doing this to have me not have it up, and I get why. But I'm also like, I have not been told what I can do exactly. I think that's dangerous too. And so, for the sake of my livelihood, for now, I will respect it and I will be off. But when I come back, I will come back. And I do not want to be making any piece of content with a gun to my head of we could end you today. And I think these people know that. I think they do. And that's congrats. You got me, right? I understand. But I will say this. I believe, truthfully, in my own heart, what I did was still not wrong. I don't have any issues with that. I tell people I would be in more trouble if it was more wrong or something like that. I'm not trying to have people find things about it, but I was like, I truly thought I was doing the right thing. And that was overall with the content I was posting, who I was talking about, things like, I don't think I was doing it out of bad faith. And I think that should be understood. My second thing is to make hundreds of videos about the military, to then be like helping people join, do things like that. You have to have some passion for this, not just hate. Has anyone ever gone through a bad breakup and like, I'm getting a redemption body? How long does that hate push you in the gym? A month max, right? Hate is not what fuels me. I would say discontent does fuel me, but I will also say the drive for change, like the ability of people I've been able to talk to in different spheres, in official channels of, hey, what's going on over there? What's happening? I'd love to say something good. people want to go back and look at things that were bad that I maybe, or they deem bad. I'm like, did you miss when I talked about 10th Mountain Division, where the command sergeant major, like, held accountability, redid the training, came out on his own personal social media, did that, and with class, shut everybody up? I said,
Yeah.
I would like to work for that guy. No one said, Nicky, great job on that video. You know what I mean? And I think it's hard because we as humans are trained to learn or look at negative things because we're always taking things in. So we don't harm ourselves or our family or whatever. So it's like our basic animal instinct. And so when I look at this, I understand why people look at bad. Even when I look at comments, I get one bad comment. I'm like, oh man, I don't like that. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I've had to learn over the time. I've had to learn to absorb the good ones too.
Yeah.
You gotta absorb it all. And so it's tough. And I get why the decisions were made that they were, and I appreciate the fact I can have it back up. I can. But I'm just a person where I am wise enough now that I feel like if I came back, I would not be doing it out of good faith. I would not be making the content how I want to make it. It would be disingenuous in that regard. And I think maybe even for myself, taking a small break, coming back, maybe we'll refresh things. I'm working on Photoshop, thumbnails, and things like that still now to try and make my skills better. So yeah, it will be back. It will be back. I can't exactly say when because I will be asking how to move forward with it. And to just say truthfully, my lawyer said this perfectly. He was like, I was like, should we talk about it or because I think my case is a very interesting case that is interesting, but I would say in some respects is dangerous because of the fact of not getting guidance from appropriate channels. So if people want to know, I actually have a Google Doc up right now that I am writing to try and write official channels, not to get anyone in trouble, but to be like, we need better policies in this space. This space is getting harder to navigate because we don't have that guidance. And I realize, yes, I had the voice of the channel that I probably could do that, but I do believe I would be walking on eggshells with that. And so I'm just going to, behind the scenes, trying to handle it in some formal ways and come back at a better time. I believe that it is hard because in a military, people are like, you don't have freedom of speech. You don't have this or that. And I'm like, to a degree, yes. I can't tell you guys top secret stuff, or I don't have information like that anyway, but you can't say those things. Or you get what I'm saying, but there's legal boundaries. But I will say that my belief interpretation of these laws are that I am still acting in my rights as a citizen. And yeah, that's where I'm at with it. I'm really looking forward to doing that. And my lawyer even said, he was like, you could go over this topic, but the reality is you just need to make content people engage with and care about and get back to that. And I was like, I will. And so it will happen. It's just, I need to make sure I feel comfortable doing it. And for right now, with how things are, I know there's a big target on my back, and that's not a good space to be in. And as I said earlier in the episode, I don't want to operate out of fear. That's never where you want to operate out of, because then you end up making mistakes. And so
I speak for a majority of the internet that we miss you. We've been wondering, obviously, like, you've tried to update us as much as possible. I think you've navigated it really well given the circumstances. And of course, we want you back, but we also don't want you to get in trouble. And I think that's also just where a lot of people are just blown away because, like you said, there's people that are twerking in uniform, and then there's you just having casual discourse. You don't come off angry, you don't come off negative, it's not distasteful, you're not bashing on one branch or one gender. Everybody's free reign, because if you're putting stuff out on the internet, which is where you get your content from, it's free real estate.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Everything I covered was like public information. And that was, and people would be like, hey, you want to leak this? I'm like, if you want to post it somewhere else or someone else is willing to post it, I will cover it, but I am not going to be the leaker of information or whatever. I don't want that to be my place. You have official channels that you can use. And then people would be like, oh, can you get my command in trouble and talk about this? I'm like, what'd you do? They didn't do this. And I'm like, did you talk to so-and-so or this person, the commanding officer? No. I'm like, okay, go do that first. Like, we can have discussions after that if there's you've gone ahead and done other things, but I'm not willing to like not give people the fair shake. I really hope that whoever can see this that maybe was involved in whatever happened can understand just like it wasn't all bad. And I think that's a dangerous road to go down where I think I've been more than willing. I'm still more than willing to have discussions about like right and wrong and where that is. But I think it's a slippery slope to control speech. And I think that's a narrative, not even in just the military space, but outside the military that we're dealing with right now, that it's not really just in a vacuum, essentially the military. But yeah, no, I would love to talk more about it at some point, but right now I'm just going to focus on kind of the next steps. And I want people to know that this was my outlet. This was my family. Like,
Yeah.
this is something I did multiple times a week as a creative outlet for me to do things. So while the people that did this, I think that they, in a business or just the job way, yes, they did win that part of it. But at the same token, without doing this, I've lost a lot of mental health issues from it. Like, I'm just being transparent. Like, it's stressful when you've done something 8 years that you love, that you're a craft, that you've really tried to get good, and a community you're part of, and obviously a subject I am still very excited about. Like, you don't do 16 years in the military without having that excitement of some
Right.
degree. That I'm like, I want people to understand that, like, I don't expect praise, but I do expect respect. And that is, I have helped a lot of people with information join the military. I can't tell you how many people are like, dude, I watched you, man. I was like, crazy. Look at you now. I'll be honest. I lived in Japan for 4 years. I didn't meet any subscribers, right? There's a couple thousand people on the base that knew I did it, but I wasn't at home like running into people all the time. So for me, I was just in a spare bedroom doing that. And so the comments, the numbers didn't really seem real. And then I moved back to the States after 5 years, or yeah, it was like after 5 years, because it's been like 2.5 since I got back. And they're like, I know you. I go through base gates and people are like, I know you. I'm like, this is so weird. Because in Japan, no one acted really any different to me because
Yeah.
it was so small. And I was just like, okay. That's my naiveness too. I really did not understand the internet, and that's my own thing. And I think I've tried to do a good job navigating it, but I probably could have done a better job as well.
Yeah, I understand. I think we all get to that point where, some of us, like, maybe not so much in grade school, but like middle school, high school, some of us saw the evolution of social media start. And so you think that at this age we know the internet, but you become a content creator and you're just opened up to a different world in a sense, or just realities that you wouldn't experience if you're not putting yourself out there on the internet. I think that's where I obviously saw what happened, and I'm trying to keep it vague out of respect and to not get
Mhm.
you in trouble, but also just person to person. If somebody had told me that I couldn't continue podcasting or like just creating or whatever, I would be heartbroken. And I think that's why I reached out to you. I'm sure that you got a large influx of messages, but
Mhm.
as a fellow creator, I was just like, dude, I cannot imagine how you feel right now. And I'm glad that you touched on the mental health aspect because,
Yeah.
again, you're like our comfort creator of the community.
Thank you. I
Like,
appreciate it.
absolutely. And it's the truth, though. So that's why I think it hurt and it confused a lot of people because you really don't do
I
anything. You have a
I
really good way of conducting yourself and what you put out there. You are very cognizant of everything. And i- in a way, you were being silenced. And it just
Yeah.
felt icky when
I still feel that way even now. I can truthfully say, and I'm not saying this to get like sympathy or whatever, but I truthfully can tell people. I've talked about mental health on the channel. I've advocated for it. I've used the services myself. That through this process, I have had loss. I've had grief. I'm angry. I'm sad. I'm frustrated. And trust me, there's times that I've wanted to be like, this happened. And you want to do that. And to remain that composure is hard. But I know in my heart that these people know the truth. I know the truth. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
I know I'm operating out of good faith. And maybe they truthfully do. Maybe. But I don't believe that. That's my speculation. That's my opinion from that, not representing the DOD or DON. But it's just very touchy. And to respect it, I have to. And I still am. But I will respectfully do what I got to do.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. And I think throughout this process, I've really been dehumanized. And it is something that I would tell any person right now, before you post a photo on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, could you imagine someone being like, can't do that. We're going to hold that, see what it looks like first. And then you can put, how would you feel? You'd be like, it's a picture of my dog. We've got 5,000 pictures and we've got 1,000 dogs to go through, 2,000 posts of food. And you're like, can we just post a dog? You can look at that where you're like,
Ooh.
you have these boundaries and things that I think where it's like, why don't we just get rules that dogs can be posted? What if the dog's dead? How many dogs are dead out of the entire? I love dogs. I'm just saying, like, how many of these are really cruel, bad photos? Not many. I think that there definitely needs to be some further guidance from it. And it sucks because I'm in a realm where during the mental health side of this, you're getting reminded all the time of your silence. You can't do anything. But then people are like, Nicky, dude, I love you. Thanks for helping me join and help. And I'm like, I feel like I've been noticed more when the channel's been down. And I'm like, dude, I'm trying to like mentally take a break from this and I cannot. And so it's a constant reminder that you go to work. It's a constant reminder. You obviously you have all the gear and setup, and a lot of your life was this. All the Instagram pages I follow, a lot of the Facebook pages I follow, a lot of the Reddit threads I follow are military related. My friends are creators that are just making content, which I'm like, if I'm breaking the rules, these people should be in the military brig at this point. And I'm not a person, I'm not going to flag those people and be like, go get them. I let them do their thing, but I just think that there needs to be better application of how this is. And like I said before, I'm going to go through official channels to try and make that better. Do I think that's going to happen in the time I'm in? Not at all. But if I'm the person that's to suffer to get that done, I probably will, because I'm not a constitutionalist, but I definitely believe in a lot of what we're founded on is important to defend. And I don't want to just sit here and have as social media gets bigger, I think we just need service members to know they can't just be told absolutely no, or the blanket advice, just don't post. I'm like, that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
Let's be honest.
And respectfully, I feel in a multitude of ways, the military can be decades behind certain things. So they don't understand. And while I get it, I understand it to a certain extent of OPSEC and stuff. But for some of us that did grow up with social media, it's a part of your life. It's a way to share your life. And especially when I was back in my day, there was a way to go about it. People would post like photos. This was back then when Instagram didn't even have videos, but you're able to share your life and little tidbits and stuff. And then as it evolved, obviously the content evolves. And so the military needs to acknowledge that. Thank you for getting into that with me and with us. But I'm glad that you're doing something about it. Like you're putting some action to it. And also you're taking care of yourself. And I'm glad that you're managing and handling as well as you possibly can, and also feeling that empowerment of what like the gap that you're talking about. Let me fill this gap. Let me at least try. And yeah, it might take a couple years, maybe a few decades to implement, but you're doing something about it. And I really admire that. I speak for everyone is that I'm sorry that this happened to you. We miss you. We want you to come back. You've put out some messages out there and told people to understand that there's legalities. And I think that's what hurts all the more. And it kind of fuels the confusion too. Cause like I said earlier, like you really don't do anything wrong. And I'm really trying to choose my words here because I would love
Yeah.
I would
I
love to
would
say,
love to get into it. I really would. And
but
I believe in my channel, and mind you, you can't, as much as I've wanted to go to the rooftops. There's times where I've been frustrated and I'm like, I got to call one of my friends and be like, this is what's in my brain right now, because I feel like a lot of this is being, in my opinion, I feel gaslit, right? That's what I
yeah,
feel. And so I understand. To this process, I've lost a lot of trust. And I'm not going to lie, that has been with people I've worked with. That's been with people that I thought leaders are supposed to support them and stuff like that. And I've just really lost that. And I find it really hard for me because I have this great appreciation for the military. I will, like I said before in the podcast, I would have not statistically had a chance to be here without it. So
mm,
I love it. It's that love-hate
yeah,
relationship. And so it's so hard because even with all that, I'm sitting here and I'm like, we are better than this. We as an organization are better than this. We can provide this. We have the resources. It's just whether they want to or not. And so I think the road's going to get slipperier. And as time goes on, and I'm hearing from back end channels, I'm talking about Instagram accounts with multi-million followers, stuff like that. There are things going on essentially where they're trying to fix it. No one's getting in trouble right now for what they're doing, but they're being advised to course correct before these things come into play, so that way it's not that crazy. It sounds like stuff's coming down the pipe. It's just a matter of what the exact verbiage is going to be, because that does get into legalities
yeah,
essentially.
absolutely. Yeah.
And right now, I think the Army, I just read their recent policy. It's been pretty vague. And I was asking about that between these back end channels, and they were like, that's like the shot across the bow. That's like, warning, like something's going to come down, reevaluate everything you got up. But I think it could be more precise or more clear, because the
Mm,
answer, I don't want it to be no. I want it to be yes within these parameters, right? If we can have Air Force officer as Miss America, or I forget what the pageant was, like if she can go do that, why? They're going to ask controversial questions to her anyway in the Q&A, possibly. What do you think about the war in Ukraine? They could have asked her that, right?
yeah.
Like I look at that where I'm like, it's just so weird to me how it's so much of a landmine. I
Yeah.
feel, if you could say that. So,
Yeah.
were there any other questions besides about that topic that people wanted to know? If that's it, that's fine.
Yeah, that was literally all like handful of questions that I got were about you coming back. With that being said, could you come back and do something different? What if you go like Bob Ross and you start painting or something? Like, I don't know.
So
Are you allowed to do that?
yes, now I can.
Before you couldn't come back, period. Was that what they said?
That
Like
was
at
the
all? Like,
initial stuff I was being told, was I could not come back at all. Like it was going to be
no, like
nothing,
not
nothing, nada.
no Nikki MGTV, no
No YouTube videos. Could not upload
cooking with
anything.
Nikki.
Couldn't be about painting. Couldn't be about cakes. Couldn't be about anything. And then that is why I had to try and
Yeah.
say, is there something else? Because for me, that was a big issue. So
You're a creator. It's your passion. People who know you, people who have followed you and watched you for years understand you. And that's why again it added to the confusion because it's just you're just a good dude that likes to yap and puts out
mm,
information and citations and stuff. It's good banter. Like I can go through other comment sections of other creators and it gets negative.
I feel dehumanized through the process, because I really was like, it felt like nobody was trying to talk to me as a person through this process, but it was always through the lens of some legality, gotcha, whatever, that
Mm.
I'm just, it's dangerous, and I will sit my corner and color. And that's where I'm at right now. And that's
Yeah.
probably where they want me to be at. And I'm okay.
Yeah.
We'll agree to disagree, but I just want people to know every day I'm not doing it. I'm wanting to do it. For example, Tim Kennedy is going off right now, and I want to talk about that because there's a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like, I've made a lot of videos about Tim Kennedy as well, but I've always given him, I think, a fair shake as well with a
Yeah.
lot of stuff. But there's a lot of stuff that I want to break down. I feel like certain people cut things out. And I like the idea that I can aggregate things and research them and piece things together. And I look at it, you said, could I come back and do something else? I totally could, where I'm like, what's making me not use those same skill sets that I use for these videos on something else? And yeah, I would love to, but I don't know what that is yet. I think I'm still grieving what this
Yeah.
is.
That's
And that's
understandable.
truthful. What, like, you do something for 8 years, you're like, probably not a great time to be like, let me just jump onto something else. You really want to be cautious of that and make sure you're not just being flippant and just being erratic or anything to that extent. And so essentially, yeah, I'm just trying to figure out what the next move is. And that's right now. I've even had Instagram skits in my head that I want to do that are military related, poking fun at our community. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
Oh, yeah, we'll talk about that offline. That
Yeah,
sounds fun.
yeah.
Okay. What are you doing to pass the time to take care of yourself? I appreciate that you do mention mental health here. Like I
Mm.
like really value that, especially mental health for men. Like, what are you doing? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, I'm
Just
doing fine. Like right now, I'm good. But
yeah.
we all know, like, we get in those funks like 2 days ago, like, but then those moments, that's when I'm like, okay, let's put in, this is energy, this is motivation.
Yeah.
And then I have to reframe it and say, okay, let's put that down. Let's put this energy into something. Because if not, I'm just going to be frustrated. I'm not going to do much with it. And so, really, since it's been down, I really have just been working with other creators to help out. Because in my mind, if I cannot be the creator or doing it, I will be like, yeah, dude, show me your thumbnail, show me your video. I'll tell you what I think about it. Because that muscle in my brain, I can't turn off. I can't watch. I can't look at a thumbnail. I can't look at a way a video is edited. I can't look at any of that equipment without being like, I know what they did there. I'm
Mhm.
analyzing it. My brain does not allow me to take that lens off and put a different one on. It's just built in now. And so that's really what I've been doing, is just talking with other creators and trying to like keep my brain sharp with that. And I've been like, oh, why wasn't I editing with this anyway? This effect or this or that. I'm like, dummy, because you were so much just trying to go, taking a breath
Oh,
on those days where you had a break, maybe to like, how could you make a thumbnail better? How could you edit this a little better? I hate it because people, like, my videos are so basically edited. It's nothing, which even then some people are like, you do too much. I'm like, no, I could do more than that. I like putting
yeah.
stuff together and telling a story. I love it. But yeah, I have some projects that I'm working on right now. There's just been some reflection time, really, is what this
Yeah.
is for me. And I think that's important because before this, only time I had reflection per se was like if we were doing field work or something where I'm like, okay, I can't upload for a month or whatever it was. It's hard because to do it consistently, like even those moments you're like, I see something, I want to talk about it, and then your brain never stops. I don't think this is something I will ever be able to turn off.
Yeah, I feel that. Sometimes I wish I feel like sometimes people don't understand that they say it to me. Trust me, I say it to myself. I'm like,
Mhm.
could you shut up for once?
Yep.
And then that little voice is, no. I am excited to see what comes of this kind of grace period for you,
Yeah.
slowing down, taking a new approach to things, learning some things. I'm glad that you're using your time. I wouldn't say wisely, but like you're taking your time and you're making the most of it.
Yeah.
You know,
I
that's like,
To be honest, I spent time with family recently. Like
How was that?
It was, I've talked to other creators that have taken breaks and they're like, it was nice not to film my life. You have
Yeah.
to understand, as a person that loves doing this, I literally have my phone and my little DJI thing to throw on. If I ever just want to boom, go. I bought the MacBook Pro just so I could do it on the go because it's something I just enjoy. I can't even explain it. If I could do something else that wasn't related to this right now, I probably would, but just not much.
You
for
know
me.
what? Like, how cool would it be if you like you were like a news anchor or something? That could be fun. Could you
There's a
see
lot
yourself
of
doing that?
people. There are a lot of people that have said stuff that like you should do something like that. I have never. Maybe if I get out and do that, we'll see. I've told people my frustration is after doing this, there's a command event or something, and they'll be like, just go up there, do it. And you're like, I don't just wing it. You don't just go up there. Like, I can talk in front of people, but yeah,
You got to prepare.
not prepare, but prompt a little bit. Not just, I don't like running gunning. Sometimes it will be entertainment based. And I'm like, if I
Okay.
was just gonna be like, hey, introducing Jess, here she is, I could do that. Yeah, it is. I get told my voice is kind of soothing per se.
Yeah. That's why I called you like a comfort creator.
A little in high school, I had a couple people that are like, you got this Owen Wilson vibe. And I'm like, maybe because I had the flippy hair. And I was like,
Okay, now you got to do the wow. Wow.
yeah.
We'll see. We're all waiting and the community is just supporting you. I appreciate you talking about it. I'm glad that you're taking care of yourself and taking that time to slow down and enjoy family and friends and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, we want you back.
I tell anybody, I'm like, I answer Instagram DMs. I do it all. Still, like, I'm trying to figure out in my head where I want to go because I think sometimes this, I'll call it the great reset. It might change things of how I approach things or even the type of content I want to do. Part of me is like, why don't I do like video essays? Because they're pretty popular. They're nitty gritty, like I like to get into. It's good editing. It might be something I get into, but yeah, I gotta figure it out. When are you doing your only chickens?
Only chickens. I need to come up with some names.
Okay.
I'm for it.
What if that's the name? Only chickens. And it's just, and the whole content is just you. It's just chickens. It's a play on OnlyFans, but it's funny because it's only chickens.
Yeah, I'm open to it. I'm glad you appreciate the chicken content because I always loved animals, but there's just something about one, the eggs are amazing, but I just look in my backyard and I just see my chickens just pecking the dirt and having a dirt bath, and it just makes me feel just nice.
I get the vibe off you that we're very similar, where you'll go to someone's house and then they're like, are we gonna hang out or are you gonna hang out with my dog? That is the reality for me. I can't.
Yeah, fuck you.
Yeah.
Where's the kitty cat? Yeah, no, definitely
I'm
for
a
sure.
sucker for animals.
I appreciate that feedback. I will say that people ask me like, "Oh, you should do the videos where they like bounce the chickens like this." I was like, "Yo, I got some fat ass chickens. I can't. They're too big." Selena is a two-hander. Like even then, I have to support her because homegirl's like when I pick her up.
Oh my God. Yeah, no, the chicken game, I wish I was joking. This sounds so crazy, but I'm like, I watch the sheep do funny things, goats do funny things. These chickens have personalities. I know they do. And you could show that through video and stuff like that. And we'll talk offline.
Yeah,
Put
we'll
a thumbs
talk.
up on this. Throw a comment, whatever you can, that you want chicken content.
Let me know.
And
I'll deliver.
listen, if you need a host, it can't be a news anchor, but I'll be a only chicken. We have Jess here with her chicken Selena coming out with the sassiness. She has a nice bronze, little feathery look towards the back of her neck, going to a nice black flat finish. See,
See,
I can
there you
do it.
go. All right, deal. We got a deal. But okay, so we dabbled a little bit on some things, and I know we glossed over a lot, but I really appreciate you coming on Resilient and Rowdy. And I do want to ask you two more things,
Okay,
actually.
go for it.
How old are you?
I am 34.
In your 34 years of life, in whatever aspect, military or civilian, as a man, as a human. What does resilience look like for you, like in your life and your journey?
Ooh.
Mm.
So a lot of resilience comes from just, for me, I look back at like how I got here, and resilience as a man, because I'm like, when I look at it, like, I grew up with a lot of sisters. It's hard to explain my whole family situation. It's crazy. But in some regards, like being a guy in the family, you are just like, you're gonna be fine. You can like sleep in the dirt. Like you're good. Cool. And you don't get that same like here to support you. And so that can be hard. That resilience is there. I'm not gonna say I've done it all on my own. I have not. I've had people that help me out. I appreciate those people, but I think the resilience has been really just finding people that believe in you and keeping them around and being resilient enough to recognize those people, because if you're not, you're going to end up trying to collect people. I've done that, and that does not, that makes you less resilient, because now it's volume versus it's quality versus quantity, right?
Yeah.
And so really, as I get older, I think a lot of us, like the ownership we've talked about, like becoming in your own, but also recognizing people that are there for you is resilience. I think if that is something a lot of people need to sit down and be like, nah, who is really down for me? If they're not, and they're not giving the same energy back, I'm not saying like, be an asshole, cut them off. You can just match their energy. Or you can tell them like, hey, I really wish we were closer. I really wish that, but we're not. And I respect that, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page. And maybe that brings you together. Maybe it pushes you apart, but at least it happened. And I think that gives us back to the circle of like tough conversations. People make fun of me because I don't make awkward conversations, but I definitely am like, I'll talk about fucking anything. Literally, I don't care.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I think
yeah.
people can be a little intimidated by that. But I think it goes back to we're given this one life. I think you and I can both agree that we have, some things that we wish we could. And instead of just lingering on that and kicking rocks and feeling down for ourselves, we're just doing something about it now.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? All of those times that I held back, all of the times that I watered myself down to make other people feel comfortable and stuff like that. Or I allowed one bad comment to make me feel down when there's so many people supporting me. So many people supporting me that have nothing to benefit or gain from it. And it means the world to me coming from them. I'm like, wow, like you appreciate what I do. I'm a small content creator and I just appreciate that. But yeah, absolutely.
I will never forget this ever, because it's not good to hold on to a lot of things, but
Yeah.
sometimes you got to hold on to a couple really good memories that just fuel you. And I was like 20 or 19. This was like 2009.
Oh,
And
wow.
this is, I think, when monetization just started, but that's not why I was doing it. I just always filmed things and filmed things. And I actually, no one wants to watch your stupid videos, Nick. And I was like, that hurt me. That hurt. And now I've never said it, but I'm like, I know you've seen the channel and I know people watch my stupid videos. So now I'm like, that's resilience. That was
Yeah.
like cool.
Yeah.
Speaking small creators, the most dangerous thing about the internet right now is people adding validity to people based on subscriber, follower count, views, whatever the frick that is.
Yeah.
Watch the video. Don't look at the view counts. Just watch it. This usually it's a person that's making this, unless it's AI, but it's a person, right? And
Yeah.
so that doesn't mean they don't have a valid point. They might have a valid point. That's someone's got to start down here. That's just be like, don't listen to you about eating because that guy's bigger than you are. And that could be like, because they have 1 million followers versus my 164,000 I have. So, okay. I don't understand that concept. It's almost like people think they woke up and like, good opinion, 1 million followers. It takes time to grind. So.
Yeah. And I think I was just talking about this with somebody else, another creator, and it's just, I know too much. I'm just going to say that. It's a small space in the creator world. And with what you just said is, I do personally know I don't really associate with them, but I know people who like make like red pill content
Mhm.
and they put their lives out there. It's dangerous how much of a lie they're selling versus what I know has happened in real life. And I don't mean that in the sense of this is like gossip or tea, but it's always just that fall from grace moment where you see somebody making content and then you meet them in real life and it's a very distinct gap of what they're putting out there and then what their life is. And I mean that in the sense of renting luxury cars, getting evicted from their apartment, blowing their credit cards up, and they're pushing out this content to be like, oh, yeah, and this and this. And they bought the followers.
Oh my God. The
Okay.
amount of bot followers, I cringe because I can look at it. I'm like, bot, and I don't want to
Yeah.
hate them because some of these people would actually have some decent followings. And I would say, dude, if you have a 30,000 follower, 50,000 follower, like, why are you mad? That's fucking cool.
But
I'll tell you this, there are a lot of people that are trying to climb that social ladder. And the fact is there's no numbers to it. There's quantifiable things where I'm like, I look at it like you're a small creator. You could blow up and be bigger than what I have. And I've seen it happen. So I'm like, why are you crapping on them? If you're making videos, I'll talk to you.
I'm sorry, I don't have $16,000 to just put aside to buy followers.
Mhm.
For followers, imaginary numbers.
For people, I think it would be worse to make content for bots or whoever. That's worse for me. I would feel less validation from that. Oh my God, I'll never forget. I love my beginning story of YouTube. Okay. And
Ooh, okay, yeah, let's get into
the
that.
beginning story of YouTube was the fact that I would be stoked if I got one comment, if I got a thumbs up, if I got
Yeah.
whatever. Me and my ex, I'm not really, we're not tight like that or anything, but I will give her some credit. This person decided she would make fake accounts and give thumbs up, and she saw how happy I was. That was a
Mhm.
very cool thing that she did. And I was like, those things kept me going. And I did get real followers, real subscribers, like obviously. But
Yeah.
she was like, yeah, I would just see how you'd be so excited if you got a thumbs up. And I look at it where I was like, dude, that someone liked what I did. That's it.
Yeah. I know you say that in the context of the YouTube platform, but you'd be surprised, like, with creator to creator or creator and the audience or friends, people, especially the Instagram culture, people just don't like shit. Not always. It can be a little weird. Or maybe that's just like a girl thing, but no, it's
They're
not a
like,
girl thing.
I'll look at it, but and then you're like, bitch, Instagram knows how long you looked at that photo for and zoomed in and whatever else.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
knows you. We talked about this on what I wrote to you today about something you liked. And I was like, why am I getting this now? And Instagram knows you. I didn't like that
Oh my
post,
God. Yeah.
but then it just started coming up. So that's why I tell people, I'm like, you can think you're lying to the masses, but that doesn't matter. The algorithm knows what you're doing. It understands it. I was watching John Oliver, and there were all these women that are like, TikTok knew I was lesbian or bisexual before I did. I'm like, okay, it's funny to me. Like, maybe you just gave off the vibes and you weren't even realizing it.
Call them smartphones for a reason.
What other questions do you have? 2 questions.
Okay. The last one, and I'm being so serious. So
Okay.
you have 16 years in the Navy, right?
Mhm.
How many times have you sang the YMCA with the boys on a
Never.
boat? What the
No,
fuck?
I know. Okay,
Okay.
let me explain. If anyone makes it as part of the podcast, I appreciate you. Love you. No, seriously, I do. I would say my thoughts about that are I said I have the most non-Navy career because
Mhm.
I went on that one ship for 6 months, which wasn't even a real ship. It was not they call it a gray hull, like the walls, the sides of it are not gray. I know.
Sure.
So it's not a real one. So anyway, the rest of my time's been with the Marine Corps. So that's why when people are like, "Oh, you're in the Navy," I'm like, "Dude, I stuff in the Marine Corps too." No, I'm
Yeah.
messing, but it's yeah. So I don't really have much ship experience, and I'm not going to a ship, and I'm going to be done with the Navy. It is the most funny thing that I chose a job in the military that is, you would think is the branch of service would be on a ship and nothing.
And why does no one sing the YMCA in the Navy? It's a song for y'all.
Oh, I don't know
You know what I mean?
why that is. To be honest, it's like jokingly played every once in a while, but it's never something that people are straight up like, oh yeah, let's take this seriously. Here's the issue with the branch of the Navy. The branding is broken. It is confusing messaging.
Yeah.
And it's because of what the Navy does. It's confusing messaging because you're like Navy SEALs, and then you're like, whoa, where the fuck are the boats? Who's carrying them? You know what I mean? And then you're watching Baby Guy running, and then there's a bunch of fat sailors. What the fuck is this? Planes on the top of a boat?
Oh my God.
And
So
then they're
cool.
like, what is this place? We're on
And
planet
then
bullshit. You know what I mean? That's what it is. Uniforms are interesting. One guy was like, you just get off duty. I was like, I went to the grocery store. By the way, I hate wearing the uniform anywhere outside of base. It is something that I despise. I don't do. It feels weird, icky.
yeah, I
Because it's
agree.
like, look at me. And for me, I'm not that person. I will straight up drive home and change to get what I have to, typically, or something like that. But honestly, it is an interesting branch. It's trying to figure out identity because it's lost a lot of it since the Top Gun stuff. Like I'd say since the mid 2000s, after the and like the jet goes off, it's an adventure, accelerate your life. Like after that, we don't know what to do. We're like,
What better way than to have a bunch of dudes on a boat? You can hang out with all the boys.
you must forget that I covered drama, and anything related in that field has not done well on social media in the past like 2 years. It's been a pretty rough ride for sure.
Okay, that was my dying question. I have to always ask people that were in the Navy, the YMCA. It's a serious question, but it's a little bit of a hee haw.
Why'd you join the army? I am seriously like, I don't get those vibes off you at all. You went to the wrong office. Like you had to have opened the wrong door.
You think so?
I think so.
I joined the army because, like, physically, I wanted to push myself. I specifically chose the army because they were trying to open up the combat arms to women. So I was like, okay, let me do something for now, just push myself and just see where it goes, and maybe then try for a combat arms position. I'm comfortable with guns. I love them. And I knew what was going on with the GWAT, and I was like just feeling very gun-ho, super boot, just like motivated. Oh yeah, send me. Like I'm 18, young and willing. Let's go. I wanted to just see how people treated me without knowing who I was, where I came from, whatever. I was just looked at just, they used to say, oh, everybody's green in the army. Because I'm constantly like, you look at me and you immediately assume or stereotypes, or you see my physical and you just make assumptions. And that was just so annoying. I think in some ways I'm a little bit like alien, or like just detached from my body. And I get very exhausted when people just, I know it's obvious, but, and I know it sounds weird, but I'm more than just a woman that's Hispanic with huge knockers and hilarious. Let me be more. And I felt like the army could be a good environment for me to push myself to just see what I was capable of in whatever aspect that meant. And so I liked that there was always room for growth. There was leadership above you that wanted good for you. Thankfully, along the way, had a lot of people see that potential and just building off of that instead of just being like some other bitch, your English 101 class. I just felt like there was more opportunities for me to express myself. But I also knew that, especially in the army, that there were more roles where even if you aren't in a combat MOS, you could still support.
Yeah.
And that was awesome for me because I understood certain contexts of, okay, in certain countries, men can't talk to women and kids and stuff. I'm trying to basically say I was open-minded. I love guns. I don't mind getting dirty. It just felt like the right environment for me to just find myself and see if I could be of use for the army. If
Dude,
it comes,
it's so funny you said it because I was like, I'm here for a good time. I'm not like, whatever happened to hitting the ports? Like, I'm gonna go to ship. I wanted to travel. And then when
Mm.
I joined up, they were like, with the Marines, Afghanistan. And I was like, I don't want to go over there. They're like, going over, you're a boy. You will go with the other boys over there. And I'm like, what the fuck? What did I get myself into? Like, it was just, but I knew that's what was coming up, actually. I'm not totally naive. The girl I was dating said she didn't want to watch my videos. Her dad was a Marine. And so when I came back with the job I did, he was like, you're a freaking idiot. Like, you're going to end up back with a Marine. So that's what happened. So,
Yeah.
yeah, you look back, you have to laugh. You're like, who was that person? Be real. You're like, what? Use like even the words you're saying. You're like, you look back, they used you. They like you look at that and you're like,
But that's what I was just willing to do to an extent. And I felt like I had to like really sit down and really think that thoroughly, especially when certain opportunities arose. And I was just like, ah, fuck. Like, again, I'm not this bloodthirsty person. And this has come with working through the things that have happened to me is I was always afraid, but I knew that if I had to defend myself, I can. And I think in certain instances, I was like, I don't want to hurt them. And I'm like, they're hurting you. So I pushed through that mental barrier. And it doesn't always have to be violent. It's just you're in a hazardous place and you're just trying to do what you can, especially as a woman. I just want to be part of the team. I want to help out in some way, shape, or form,
yeah,
even if that meant, hey, James, like you have the smallest hands. Like I dropped something in the striker crevice. Can you dig in it? I was like, I got you. Like, just super gun ho, just happy to help. But yeah, no regrets. A lot of people don't understand it. And I think it's just a side of me. I think that's why I relate to a lot of certain people because I'm just a chill guy.
yeah. People like, what are you chasing? Money? Are you chasing experience? What's your motivating factor?
Mm,
Because I'm like, I would tell anybody, I'm like, if you're just coming for benefits, like you get the same DD 214 if you join the Air Force and you're a cook or I don't know, make some job up that is not that hard, or you're an infantry doing the Marine Corps. Like it, you are entitled to the same GI Bill, to the same
yeah.
VA home loan, all those things. Like you, what is your why? And that will guide you a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's hard because you tell people like they want to do cool guy stuff until it comes time to go do cool guy stuff. And people will even ask me like, why don't you go do some other program or something? I'm like, dude, cool guy stuff is not what I'm doing now. Like I'm doing smart guy stuff. I'm trying to not make my body wither away. Responsible. It's being in the military in some respects. It's like a pro athlete. Like you got to stay healthy. You can't just be on profile or whatever
Yeah.
limited duty and be like, yeah, I'm just riding this one out. That's not really an
Yeah.
option.
I think that was like part of the reasoning. It was a little bit of patriotism and feeling so much gratitude for the life that my family and I were able to have here in the US and just wanting to give back in some way. I even also thought about the Peace Corps. But when I had gone through and overcame my eating disorder, I felt this would be a really cool thing to do. I literally have to eat, I have to work out. Why not? And I think that was not necessarily a reason, but it was a way to prove myself. It's okay. You gained weight to join, you healed ish. Let's just see what you can do. And I think I also love that part. I think I love proving people wrong, but also a lot of people underestimate me, and that's fine. I'm just living this life and seeing what I can do with it. Just having that open mindedness. I enlisted, like I should be prepared to do whatever. I hate how it sounds. Call it whatever the fuck, but like some women just don't want to deploy. You signed up for the army, like the fuck you think you were gonna do? So you just have to prepare as much as possible. I made the most of it. It was good, but ultimately I think that's why I started talking about my story, is because I would have given more years to the army. So we're losing a lot of people in that same manner. However, they got there may vary, may
Mhm.
differentiate. It might just be like burnout. It might be because of assault. It might be because of harassment. But I have a little bit of that savior complex to where I'm like, you know what? Like you said, like I see a gap. Let me have these conversations so that we can reach to a conclusion and have some solutions. But like I said before, the military can be decades behind. And
Oh
I
yeah.
hate to see it. I hate to see it because I loved my time in the Army. It was great. And it's been great being able to serve this community now in the nonprofit sector, as well as like podcasting and yapping and the memes and stuff. So I just want to keep that going because I still believe in that message. So
It's so hard too, because imagine you did high school 4 times. That's like essentially what I've done, right? So I tell people, I'm like, I've done where you see the same patterns, like, oh, they're gonna date, they're gonna do, like, you just see it over and over again, and you're like, and it's hard because there's people I've seen where I'm like, man, we need people like you, and I love you, and I think you're great. I just am sad because I don't think this is going to be challenging enough for you. Like, eventually you're not going to get any more squeeze out of this. And you're going to get bored, and you're going to need something else. And I know your goal is to go do something else. So as much as I could lie to you, but I love you as a boss, I'm like, I appreciate that. That's awesome. I cannot guarantee. There are other people like me in the military. I'm not the one of one, but I tell them, I'm like, I can't guarantee your next boss or whoever you're with is going to be like me. You got to find those allies. You got to search out those people. That's a skill you have to develop. And so find your allies, find your advocates, and navigate this shit, because shit can get lonely, man. It really can. You'll be surprised who you'll befriend. I've always thought that. You're like, how did I befriend this person? But they're one of the coolest dudes I know.
And you like, I did make an effort to add people like on Facebook. Like Instagram was still back then, but I have these people on my Facebook and I love like watching them hit their milestones and what they're up to and stuff. And I think that's just like what adds to that experience is just you can't get that anywhere else unless you just go out of your way to travel and immerse yourself in cultures. And you can do that to an extent, but when you're with somebody day to day in confined spaces and stuff, like you see them literally every day, 24 hours, you really get to know people and like their background and what they know. And I feel like intellectually that really just stimulated that part of my brain that constantly like likes the more. So it's definitely great. And I think that's like why it's fun having creators like you just have those real conversations, whether it's in the DMs or like through your platform.
I know. I was going to ask you something, because people that are listening to this are your fans, and I feel like it's an injustice to not ask you a question. I will say I've followed you, since 2019 or something now? It's been several years. And I will say I love when you went off the hinges. I did. And I know I loved it. I know. And you're like, I got to tone it down. I'm rowdy. But there's like a new wind of maturity. And was it when you moved to Georgia that this like new chapter happened for you? I don't know. There's like a new tone with you in the past 2-3 years, I've noticed. And that's why when I hit you up, like I was making lighthearted chicken content, not to bring this back up, you guys can still request it. But I was like, I really was like, and I'm not saying that you became unfunny or not. I was like, are you okay? Because I was like, are you playful? But you seem more tone and direct now in a way of maturity, not like you weren't mature before, but just like maybe now you're more intentional.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it goes back to what I said earlier about just like wanting to heal and grow and get my shit together. And also acknowledging that as fun as podcasting was and being a micro influencer for a bit was cool. But ultimately, I have 2 goals. And those 2 goals were pursue higher education with psychology and also just have a healthy relationship. And I knew that I could not get there if I didn't really hone down on my mental health. And that also meant having to take a step back from creating content and just being a little embarrassed of it. I was having fun, and that's okay when you're in your mid 20s, but I felt like there was just this push to like a little bit from my parents and a little bit from friends is like stability, and I'm capable of so much more. So not to put all my eggs in that circle, not that I was, but just making a little more effort into balancing it all. I didn't want to move back to Georgia, actually. It's been a huge challenge for me to be back in this state because of the people that live here and dealing with my family. And I think that also triggered me so much. It triggered a lot of childhood trauma. It triggers my adult trauma. It triggers my military sexual assault trauma. I reached a point where I was like, it's up to nobody else but myself. And yes, that's obvious, but somehow feeling, oh, maybe a relationship will save me, or like just finding something that will give me purpose, because I don't see that within myself. I didn't see healing for me at that point yet.
Mhm.
And yeah, like it was fun putting out that stuff. It was fun exploiting my life and dancing in my underwear and all that stuff. But when you really look at it, you grow up and you're like, you can't do that forever. Britney Spears is doing it, but that's Britney Spears. I'm just some random bitch. Also, like I said, that embarrassment. I saw all these little discrepancies when I was doing my yearly audit, and I was like, you know what? I can still be me, but I just need to focus on some other things, some more concrete things, because the internet could be gone, Instagram could be gone whenever. And while I love connecting with people through humor, is that's my intent. I just love to make people laugh. It makes me feel so good. I love to entertain, but I think it started to come at a point where it was just unhealthy for me. So yeah, I've just had to get serious. I have a lot of support, thankfully. As
Mhm.
much as I didn't want it or didn't want to accept it, I have to use it wisely. And I just don't want to let my family, and I don't want to let myself down. I feel like I owe it to myself. Like I finally have that little voice somewhat controlled, but I do want to see what happens when I really push myself and get to that point, and finally coming to terms that having a healthy personal relationship with myself as well as with others isn't going to come easy, and I just really needed to put that time in to be able to show up better. So I got
Yeah.
sober. I worked on the self-control thing. I'm still a ding dong. I just don't know how to get back out there. I'm constantly questioning myself sometimes of, is this funny? I think given my personality and my nature, it would be a disservice to not share it with people. So
You're
like
too
like
funny not to you're too funny not to share. I've
yeah.
told you that for years, that I think you're a comedian, and I believe that, and I was just like, "What are you doing? Like, why are you not?" I don't know if that means being on a stage. I don't know if that means doing skits. I don't know what that means, but what you can tolerate, if you can stand being in front of an audience. And I look at it where, like, the resiliency, going back to the theme of your podcast, is like rejection happens a lot in our lives. And
Hmm.
it's hard because when you first start doing stuff like this, rejection just happens all the time. People always want to leave little comments or whatever. But I wanted to ask you, what is this yearly audit? Be real with me. What do you do? Do you write some shit down? What is your audit?
So my audit, a lot of people take New Year's Eve, New Year's to do their reflections. I've always done that, but this is actually something that I've been doing since I was like very small, having an existential crisis of, oh my God, it's my birthday. I'm here. I'm turning 8. What are you doing with yourself? I've just always done that, and it fucking
Mhm.
sucks. I'm saying a lot of things that I've kept inside out loud, so I know that it's going to sound weird, but um feeling like I was put on here for a purpose, and thinking like I'm good at making people laugh, I'm good at making noises and all that jazz. But the yearly audit is what I call my birthday existential crisis. I just sit down with myself and I'm like, hey, what have you been doing this past year? What could you be doing better? What could you stop doing? What could you work on a little more? Whether this is mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, relationships, extracurricular activities. And especially the past couple of years, it's more of won't get to where I want to be by doing the same shit,
Mhm.
obviously. And for my thing is I have a lot of energy. I have to be constantly doing things. And so it's just pushing that energy into just more important things, and also just like taking a breather too, like not taking myself so seriously. I'm the kind of person that I do things and I accomplish them, then I rock it, but I'm just like, okay, that's over with, let's keep going. And so that was part of my audit, is that I need to give myself my roses when I deserve them.
Mhm.
But it's that word deserve that I constantly struggle with. I just see my flaws. I'm very self-aware, and I think that's why I struggle so much. Is like I said earlier, it's okay, I'm meeting somebody new. I could either be quiet and weird or loud and weird. Which one are we going to do? And then
Mhm.
always feeling like it's almost like a sense of perfectionism, but really it's more of laissez-faire and somewhere in between.
Yeah.
But it's been hard because that's actually why I haven't put out a personal episode, is because I've just been so conflicted, and experiencing a lot of emotions and grief and thoughts with turning 30, and it hasn't always been positive. And I try really hard to keep this platform positive because I know people love me for the spiciness or the drama or interesting topics and stuff, but more or less I know that whatever I go through, I can somehow not even glam it up, but I can just present it in a positive way so that people who are listening can learn and understand and hopefully be able to have conversations with their friends or family who have been through the things that I've been through. But it's just to keep it positive because no one's going to listen to a podcast where it's like negative. I
Well,
don't know.
I mean, but I don't want you to confuse reality or realism to negativity. And I think
Yeah.
that's so hard.
Yeah.
Where you're like, these are facts. I'm not just trying to be like facts or feelings and be douchey about it, but I'm also trying to be like, you need to have that to operate your emotions within those walls and in some capacity.
And
Um,
that's actually a conclusion I came to with everything being said is it doesn't have to be positive or negative. Some things just are. It is what it is. And some people really hate that, especially when I think about everything that I'm
mhm.
sitting with. And I've accepted that it's really given me a sense of peace. I do read a little bit of philosophy, and I had somebody years ago get me into Stoicism, and they were really into the quote "Amor fati," which is "love your fate." That can be a really hard thing for someone who has been through certain things to sit with, but I think that I've finally reached that level of peace that I can sit with certain quotes or sayings and not feel angry or resentment for it. I feel it, I accept it, and I'm moving a little differently. It's just hard. It's come with a lot of work. I know it's been fun for me to put my life out there, like mid-20s messy shenanigans, just wild. But I do want certain things in life and I can't get there without making some changes. So I'm still here. I'm just trying to get a little serious about some things while still having fun.
What about 30 specifically for you was like, oh fuck. I'm just curious. Like what I'm not like trying to discredit you like, hey dude, I'm
No, 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 not at
34,
all.
but I
It's
am like, what's made this different for you?
it is a valid question. I think that also ties into why I joined the army, and it just sounds weird, but I joined at that time knowing about the GWAT and knowing I would deploy and thinking like, hey, I might not even be alive at 25. Fuck it, we ball, we're out of here. That's just what it is. It's fucked up, but it's just how a lot of people feel.
Yeah.
And so I didn't think I would make it to 25, whether that was with the army or by my own accord
Mhm.
or even 30. So the fact that I'm here, I can say that I've been doing a pretty good job at handling everything that's been thrown at me and just desperately wanting to be that example that I wish I had. It sounds so cliche, but I think that's why I hold myself to this almost like impossible standard. I want people that have been through what I've been through to be able to see me and be like, yeah, I don't go on the internet and fake anything. If anything, I fake being mentally stable. But I do want other people to just see that you can present yourself on social media or in real life. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, you are who you are. And I know what I'm not. And so just finally showing up as that was so intimidating. I never thought that I would reach. I thought I would always just yearn for that. So it's hit me so hard. And then I'm like, okay, but more work to do. So it's been an influx of like gratitude and also, okay, let's get back to work. Like having fun, hustling, and balancing it all. Reaching 30 was just another milestone that I just really didn't think that I would reach. Now that I'm here, it's more of wow, I've really gotten a lot done within the past
Mhm.
3 years. I really value doing things independently. So the fact that I do have support means a lot. And I don't want to take that for granted. Yeah, that's been 30. It's been
It's
really
kind of
hard.
funny, like the cross section, because for me, I like people don't know this. Like I started the channel while I was in a school that had like 50% failure rate, where
Oh,
like I was
wow.
studying all the time. People are like, how are you doing this? I'm like, I don't know. I'm just doing it. And then I finished that, went to another training for 2 months, and then I was still trying to do the YouTube channel. But then I had a detachment deployment type thing that happened, and I had to get a warfare qualification. And then I got my master's, and I'm still doing YouTube working full time. And then I got my master's, and then I was like, the past like years, like this is the first time I've only just done my job and been like, okay, like what personal goal do I have? And so I'm like, it met a lot of the goals I wanted. And unfortunately, I'm stuck at a crossroads of waiting for the ability to make moves, right? Like the best 2 week notice. Looking at you, I could see that where you're like kicking it into gear. I don't know when that happens for a lot of people. I've told a lot of people that I've helped mentor or just have conversations with, I'll call my friends, whatever, where I'm like, I'm just waiting for your turbos to kick on. Because once they kick on, like, I don't know how to explain it. You rarely, and if they don't ever kick on, you're a waitress at Applebee's. That's what happens. I'm just knocking people.
But hey, there's also nothing wrong with that.
What you want your intent in life to be.
Yeah.
I'm saying, like, I think people get analysis paralysis, right? And so they're like, oh, just keep working here. And then it's too late. And then it's too this or that. And so it's good that you're reflecting on that. I think over the past 2 years, probably over the past year or so, I have been in a floaty state. Like, people don't realize before all the stuff with the channel was going on recently, I was working like 6 days a week where I was doing things on Sunday. I would take Saturday off, and then I was still doing. And so it's a slap to the face for me where I'm like, I'm working my ass off, and I didn't really get any. I don't expect always to get rewarded for things. I understand delayed gratification. I understand that. But there is a point where you're like, I could lay out for you how I am not able to accomplish any more than what I have right here.
Mhm.
I want to do more, but unless you're willing to take something off my plate, this is where I'm at. I think a lot of times people don't want to hear that from leadership perspective, no matter if you're in the military or not. And you're like, I'm trying to give you respect of this. I'm doing all this. And it's hard because people just want you to say, keep going. And then it's like, then they're wondering why mental health wise, people are like, I'm broken. And you're like, duh. Like, it's people thinking binary, like you're green, you're good, or red, black, you're bad. And someone either yellow zone or orange zone or whatever zones, whatever you want to say they are in their stress level. But yeah, it just it's crazy.
Well, that being said, you actually don't know how many people, I think maybe just like a handful of people that I've actually confided into and told them what I just told you. And I understand. And I think that's my problem, is that I understand. So I don't hold it to any ill regard. But the amount of times that I've just been told, oh, but you're so strong, but you're so resilient. And that's why I said I shot myself in the foot.
Yeah.
But I don't feel resilient all the time. And that's part of this channel, is having these conversations, having these people on. And selfishly, it's a little bit for me, and of course for the audience. I want them to listen to these interesting people. But selfishly, I still do this platform because I need to know people's stories. It's because I love to yap and I'm nosy, and I also want to know what keeps people going.
I'm gonna ask you something real deep, okay? And I don't. This is because we're talking about a lot of life death stuff, okay? And I'm being serious, and I'm gonna prompt this. So I think it's relevant. One of the guys I worked with just passed away the day after Thanksgiving from a heart attack. 37, like,
oh wow,
crazy. Like, and he had 3, and then they were like, okay, don't do any work, just chill, relax, take care of yourself. And I was thinking about it, and I was like, because you've talked about mental health, like you're here and stuff. And I was talking with a coworker because we've vented mental health struggles and stuff. And I was talking to her, I said, why is it I feel sad about this person's death, but I don't feel the same way about my own mortality? Like, in some ways I welcome it. Some days you're like, I wish I was, right? Then you're like, why are we not trading? Why him? Am I taking this for granted? Am I actually enjoying it? Then you feel guilty for not enjoying the life. I'm like, this person had 3 kids. This person had a wife. This person. And then you're like, fuck, man, am I a piece of shit? And so then you get in these self-beating up sock and bopper moments. And you're like, fuck, man. I think that's something I battle with, because I'm like, dude, I can name how many people have died from, I think my high school, of overdose, motorcycle accidents, suicides. Like, and I'm like, and I'm sitting out. Sometimes I want to be the really inspirational person. Like, I am not getting another shot at this. And I've learned that through some of these deaths, that I'm not getting another shot at this. But it's so hard because you want to live in those moments of appreciation, but it's hard to live there. It's because that life does this, punches you down a little bit. So you're just like, oh, God, I'm trying to be up there. What are your thoughts on dealing with that?
So that's actually something that I also struggle with too. And given who I am and my background and all of that, like I definitely have a dark sense of humor. I don't always say it because sometimes I wouldn't say I take it too far, but some people are just like, oh my God, okay, Jess. Because it's me. I'm like, oh, it's Jess. And then I'm like, oh my God, it's Jess. She said that. And that's why I'm like, no, just I'm a human being. Let me exist in that duality of Hello Kitty cute and also like morbid death thoughts. But that was something that I recognized as well this year too, is just like sitting with those thoughts and emotions and what to do with it differently instead of letting them simmer. And at one point it got bad because I felt like I made a very crude joke, and that's where I was like, oh, okay, like that wasn't okay, because I'm the same way. It's okay. I have friends that pass away from illness or suicide, and I almost envy them, and that's not okay. I wouldn't even say it's not normal, but it is human for you to question your existence and when that time comes and everything. But I think given my certain circumstances, is I have to keep going because I know that it really does get better. As fucking annoying as that stupid saying is, it really does. And some days you feel super empowered and liberated and motivated and you're on it, and then some days absolutely fucking suck. That's like the beauty of it all, and immersing yourself in that blissfully horrible and amazing human experience. And for me, day to day, I always share my gratitude because there's always something that I can be grateful for. And that's the only thing out of maybe a few other things, but that's like the one daily habit that I've really honed on to this year, because it's just been that constant wavering back and forth. I don't want to do anything about it. I want to be here. I want to have a good life. I want to see how it all plays out. And it comes with gaslighting yourself. Hopefully, this chapter of my 30s, I'm not going to experience the things that I went through in my youth and as a young adult and in my mid 20s and stuff. So I'm hopeful that whatever comes, I'll be able to handle it better because I have the tools, whether they're the mental tools, the emotional tools, or physical tools. Like I mentioned earlier, that was also a part of my healing process. Is I was so afraid to leave the house because of whatever could happen. Now I carry myself better and I feel a little more confident. And that's just something that I wish everybody knows. For the people that ultimately have already passed away and they couldn't reach that point, I wish they would have known that. My beliefs are, I do think that my friends that have passed on, to an extent, I do believe that they're in the dirt. To another, I think that they're looking after me and they would want me to be living my best life. And a lot of them died before 30. So I feel so guilty and conflicted feeling the way that I do, but somehow motivated by my own accord as well as theirs to keep going. So I think it's those two things, is daily gratitude and then also living my life for them, because I'm older than a lot of them now. I used to look up to them. And so I'm like, oh, but you were older than me when you passed away. And now I'm older than you.
It makes your birthdays hit very differently.
Exactly.
Right? You're
Yeah.
like,
So
whoa, I got another year out of this. That's nuts.
yeah. Yeah.
I was going to
So
say two things.
okay.
First off, what I find interesting is the pattern of the idea that you get comfort out of these negative thoughts. Sometimes it's like a warm blanket.
Mm.
And it's very weird that you're like, Why? Because they're comfort thoughts almost. My control is going back to thinking negative things about myself or whatever else. Like, why is that my default? Why not? Why can't my blanket be like, hey, dude, you're awesome? That would be awesome.
Yeah.
But what are you grateful for right now? I mean, not just be negative Nancy, speaking of that, but what are you grateful for right now that has been relevant for you?
I'm very grateful for obviously like my support, but also for like just little things. Every day I wake up and I'm looking forward to having just my cup of coffee. I'm grateful that my dog is healthy. I'm grateful for my parents being healthy too. I'm grateful that I have this kind of like newfound energy and I'm able to accomplish more throughout my day. I feel more motivated and pushed. So I'm grateful for all of those little things. And I'm also grateful to be able to look back on the past couple years and see a lot of progress. And a lot of my goals are either accomplished or within reach now. And it feels really good, but there's always just more to do. So I'm really looking forward to the day that I have those things in hand and continuing to move forward. So,
It's hard because I balance these ideas of it's good to have goals, but also the respect of the reality. Just because you meet that goal doesn't mean your life gets better. Like
yeah.
I've had friends where and people are like, why aren't you commissioning or doing whatever? And I'm like, I'm over it. And I have the reality that even if you go put on a bar or you go do whatever, my life doesn't get inherently better. Yeah, there's more money coming in. Yes, there's more responsibility, there's more headaches, there's more. So I look at it where I'm like, am I okay with what this is? Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. That's something to look at. And so, yeah, it just having that reality of gratitude. I heard a lot of just stuff with like health, with growth and things like that, which I think are important
Yeah.
to recognize. For example, like when you have a stuffy nose or something, or you're sick for a week, you're like, oh my God, I can't breathe. And then the day you can, it's thank you so much. I can breathe again. And you're like, why am I not like this every day? It's so you
Yeah.
want to appreciate those things. You want to daily go through that. But I think sometimes when I'm sick, to change my brain, I rewire. I'm like, I'm glad I'm sick. You know why? Because when this is gone, I'm gonna feel better. And I'm gonna
Mm.
remember this. And so I always try to remember like whenever I'm in a shitty situation, I'm like, isn't this gonna be a really funny story that this happened? And you're like, yes, but can we get to that part now? Can we just like fast forward? That's usually not the suffering is not as long as we typically think. But I
Right.
love that.
Yeah.
Man, it's so cool. Life is there's so much life to live, and there's so many stages when you go through it where you're just like you're never going to feel comfortable. And
Mm.
I think this happened a couple of years ago where I was like, I have to accept a couple things. I'm gonna have discomfort and I'm gonna have problems,
Hmm.
and I need to be comfortable with having discomfort and problems.
Yes.
That's all it is. And so it to me, like I look in what like right now is a YouTube thing. And it was like before that was a work thing, and before that it was the
There's
divorce thing.
always something.
There's something all the time. I was just like, can I just get a
Yeah.
break? Can I just chill for
Yeah.
a day? But you know who's gonna give me that day? Me. I'm gonna fucking
Yeah.
give me that. That's the
Yeah.
then you're like, what the fuck am I doing here? Why
Yeah.
am I giving
No, 100%. And I think I really relate to that in the sense of, like I said earlier, like I always thought that someone was going to come in and save me, like an opportunity, a job, a relationship, like just anybody else but myself. And again, it's one of those cliche sayings of nobody's going to save you but yourself. I think that a lot of people can help you, sure, but it really did take implementing a lot of holistic approaches to my healing and having an open mind to that too, instead of being like, oh, that's a bunch of woo stuff. But I sat down with a lot of it and it's really made me have a lot of progress. And I think whether I wanted to admit it or not, I was still just dealing with a lot of demons and stuff. You learn to carry it a little better. And then I had some tools where I felt like a lot of that weight was finally just taken off of my shoulders, just not taking anything for granted and keep moving forward. Cause I feel like I I have something to prove for myself, like nobody
Yeah.
else. Sure, it'd be nice. Like I said, I really do want to be a genuinely good example and show people that you can go through these things and still have successful friendships and relationships and stuff. But it takes work to get there and getting out of your own way. That was one of the biggest things, as well as having that psychology background and also experiencing a lot of things and being able to read people a certain way, is I was denying myself of that talent. I realized the past few years is who's good for me and who's not good for me. Who am I just letting hang around because I understand them? Oh, like they've gone through a lot and they're this and they're that. But I look at myself and I don't do things to people. I really just try to live a quiet, wholesome life because I am a firm believer in karma and I don't have the energy to do that. And yet, my sympathy towards others, especially very broken people, put me in positions of honestly, like I was in danger a lot of the times where I was being too sympathetic. And then I was like, you know what? It sounds so dramatic, but I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to be on the news or like in a newspaper that I'm in this military town and I got hurt in some way because I was hanging around with some people who didn't care about my livelihood. So yeah, we were friends, but friends don't put each other in situations like that. And it
Mhm.
was just that acknowledgement. It's like, hey, this isn't a healthy friendship. This isn't a healthy connection. You need to walk away. As much as I understand their behavior and their actions, is I just don't want that life for me. You just make that choice to just walk away from that. But there's a lot of grief with walking away.
It's still a loss, right?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't change what you went through with this person, memories or whatever it was. But you look at it where it's, yes, people can have bad past situations, but people can have good choices.
Yeah.
And that's where you're like, I can sympathize with what you've gone through. I can understand that. But then there's like a point of accountability too, where it's, and I'm not here to gaslight people on what did you do wrong? But I'm like, I think that at the end of the day, if you spend any other time on what you couldn't control, like you can annotate, couldn't control this, couldn't control this. And I feel this way about all of those. They all suck. But if I spend any more energy on that, I literally have defeated myself. I'm defeating myself even more and now causing more issues. So yeah, don't get in your own way. I like that. There's definitely times where I tell people, I'm like, uploading the podcast, not putting it up or whatever. Like, you're getting in your own way. Just fucking put it up, right? Or
Yeah.
people asking for permission for things they don't even need permission for. And if you look at it in life, there's a lot of we wait for permission. I'm like, why did I do that? And those people love when you wait for them to say yes. They feed off of it. And you're like, why? Like, why? It's crazy. So
Yeah.
don't do that either. Don't wait for permission. Take that shit.
Yeah, and that comes with doing that audit. I think everyone could definitely benefit just sitting down, whether it's New Year's or January or your birthday. That's my personal preference, is that kid that cries when everybody sings happy birthday.
Yeah.
That wasn't really me growing up, but internally, emotionally, that was me. That's still me.
But then I look at it where I'm like, okay, you're not a dummy. That the next birthday is coming up. So then you're like, how am I going to prepare for that one? What are you going to freeze time? Can you freeze time right now?
Oh, okay. Are you like asking that hypothetically or like literally?
To prepare your emotions for that.
Oh, okay. I thought this year was going to be like every other, but it's gotten better now in December. But yeah, I literally am not exaggerating when I have tried to record an episode to catch people up on what's going on in my life and try to explain what's going on. And it's fine. It is what it is. But there was just a part of me that just couldn't find it in me to upload it, or it never felt right or good enough. But that's just been the whole epitome of this year. It's just lots of highs and lows, and also reminding people that like social media, even me, like of course I keep it real, but I'm also not sharing a lot of my difficult moments like I used to, even though I am a huge advocate for mental health. But that was me checking myself. It's not good for my mental health to constantly just
Mhm.
dump on social media.
I think that I'm not an interesting person in a lot of ways. Like, I feel like if you watch the same person every day covering a video, you'd be like, I'm tired of this person. Like, we have tics, tendencies, whatever else it is. Like, you're right. Everything I post, I think, is a real aspect of me. But there are some reserved things that, like, I don't really talk about, or I haven't really talked about,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a valid reason to put up there, right? I went through a divorce, right? That was like one of the things I went through years
Mm-hmm.
ago now, that I'm like, nobody knew that, but that's when the channel was going really well. That's
Yeah.
when, and it's weird how like life does that. We're like, hey, this is really bad, but this is really good. And then we have all these things. It's never
Oh yeah.
fully going perfect. And it was just one of those things, like you said, what's happening behind the scenes. And I'm stronger and more resilient because of it. But
Yeah.
you look at that, and it's important to know what you're sharing and what you're not sharing. And I'm comfortable sharing that now because it's done. Like, I have no emotional buy. I don't want to say anything other than what the fact of it was, because I think
Right.
like I've processed it.
You're able to like share the story differently in a sense.
Yeah, and to be honest, it was so funny because as you get over it, like, you could go think of past issues you've had, whether it be relationships, bosses, or whatever. I'm not saying you should treat every situation like this
Right.
or think of it this way, but you should do your little rants, do your buddy rodeo roundups, like, to get your feelings out.
Mm-hmm.
But you also have to realize, beyond that, no one else fucking cares besides you. That's it. And so use that energy, like we're saying, to go into something else. Because I was like, you get to a point where coping. Have you ever felt like you've told the story so many times,
Oh yeah.
you're like, I'm tired of hearing the story
Yeah.
out of my own mouth.
Yeah, for sure. That's like where some people were really taken aback because it was like, oh wow, Jess doesn't want to talk about it for once. And also just putting my foot down. I'm a very like easygoing person. I'll talk about anything, but there's just certain things that I'm just done talking about. It's just not worth my time, my energy. Also reflecting back on, there was probably something that I could have done better, but I hesitated and I chose differently. And I have to live with that too. So I don't just sit here and talk about my situations and just point fingers. It's very much like a very self aware perspective. That's what I want
Mhm.
a lot of people to learn. I think there's
Yeah.
a lot of lack of self awareness. But yeah, sometimes those comments, like not putting certain things out there and just trying to live my life and stuff. I started a new job and it's literally a dream. That's also pushed me outside of my limits as well. And I'm very grateful for that too. So a lot of people are like seeing me all over the place and travel for work and do a lot of fun things. All the more I'm still going through this whole mental, emotional thing, but I'm proud of it and grateful for it because I had to just sit down with myself. I was like, girl, like, you're not about to go to Vegas right now and be like boo hoo and crying. Don't get me wrong, I definitely did. I was walking up and down the strip, just people watching, getting a bite to eat, and
Was this
walking back to my
recently?
hotel. I'm just like happy, grateful, but crying. And I'm like, girl, get it together. I told myself before the trip, I was like, you're not about to be sad in Vegas. So you need to make the most of it and then go home and cry. And that's just what I did. That's just the beauty of it. But that's the stuff that I'm glad that people remind me to really share and be real about, because that's just the reality of things. But then I'm getting comments like, oh my God, you look so happy. You're having so much fun. And I'm just like, thank you. I appreciate it. And internally, I'm like, you don't know what it
Yeah.
took to get here.
But does it matter if they know what it took to get there or not?
I think it does. I think in the context of really sitting down and not downplaying how I feel and making a joke out of it when there is very much a mental health crisis in whatever
Mhm.
space, but in our sector of the military veteran community, it made a lot of sense because a lot of people were really confused earlier this year when Michelle Young took her life. I think there was a really good conversation to be had then that I just wasn't ready to do, but I was able to have that conversation with a
Mhm.
few people who reached out. But that's just some of the things that I discuss with the whole mental health thing
Mhm.
is, don't believe everything that you see on social media, whether that be positive or negative or a little bit of both. Like, Michelle was a beautiful soul and she was doing great things. She was just in Italy before that happened. It was the holidays. Her daughter's birthday had just passed and she still succumbed to that struggle. And it, yeah, it's important to acknowledge it because you can be, like I said, happy, healing, hurting all at the same time. And we need to allow people to exist in that space as well. I'm not always going to be resilient. I'm not always going to be rowdy. I'm going to sometimes be a little bit in between or a little bit of a mess, but that's where the community comes in, or your friendships or your support. They just remind you in a nice way and not like a diminishing way that I was told earlier this year. And that's a reminder is no one really cares. No one really understands because I'm not putting it out there. So they don't see the gravity of it. I don't feel comfortable sitting at an Applebee's telling my friend, hey man, some days I think about creating like my own personal Jackson Pollock on the ceiling when they're just like, oh, but you're so resilient. And then I'm just like, okay, I'm not being heard. Okay. I understand the whole professional help thing, but sometimes even just a friend just listening, be like, hey, I'm sorry that you felt that way. So
that's one thing I tell everybody. Like I love that we're so mental health aware, but I'm like the value of a friend of you just fucking listening for a second.
yeah. Did you watch that movie? I think it's called Leo with Adam Sandler. It's animated. He's a lizard.
No, I haven't seen it.
I think that's what it's
That's
called.
interesting because I love Adam Sandler movies overall, and I know they're divisive.
But that was just like, yeah, okay, it's
Look
called
it up.
Leo. It's on Netflix. It came out last year. But that's one of the things of the movie is just he really connected with these grade school kids as their classroom pet lizard because he listened to them. So yeah, it does matter. It does matter the context, but I just don't feel like really and I can't find the words either. I'm still yapping. I'm still poking questions at people who I think embody resilience and I want them to hear that because sometimes it's easier for me to share and highlight somebody else than it is to talk about me. And also I feel like I'd like to listen to these episodes maybe when I'm older and see, okay, this was my 30-year audit and I want to be proud of it. And sitting with the fact that it's going to be a little messy and I'm still figuring things out, but I'm still trying.
What I find weird is there's a lot of talk about mental health where people talk about it in like this package deal where it's like,
Mhm.
I went to a therapist, did it, I worked to myself. Cool. I get the check in the box. I worked to myself. And then I'm just like, the goal is never to keep you perpetually in therapy, right? Like we all accept and should embrace that the tools are to work through that. And if you dip back down, we can calibrate back up. I've yo-yoed a lot throughout the years because
Yeah.
seasons happen, right?
Yeah.
Things in life happen. And yeah, it's a continuous perpetual process. And I feel like a lot of people are probably rolling their eyes when you hear that, but you have to respect that there's no destination, right? You'll see people get divorced, go to therapy, and then people are like, you must be in therapy for 6 months, and then X, Y, and Z. I'm like, it's not how that works, dude. Some people take years to get over a relationship. Some people are like, could be a week, a month. It's so
Yeah.
weird to me because, again, it's what you can tolerate. And I think it's so hard how hyper aware we are of ourselves in some ways because
Yeah.
I can say this truthfully. I watched Love is Blind and watching these people, and you're like, dude, I'm so glad I'm not them. They don't
Yeah.
control the edit. They don't control which angles. They don't control what's published or not published. And so you sit there and you're like, I would hate myself even more. Like the fact these people want to go on the show and do this stuff, I'm just like, I critique myself already enough. I think that would make me even more aware. And so, yeah, let me prompt you with this. Do you think that we as humans are not supposed to be as aware as we are now? Like I'm seeing myself in the camera, you're seeing yourself in the camera, you can hear yourself in the audio. When I play back, I can hear myself in the audio. Like our brains have to say what the fuck to a degree. Does it make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. And maybe we're at a level that we naturally shouldn't, but that also bites my belief of that we're here to evolve.
Yeah.
And so if we're not, and sometimes I think, okay, what if we're just like the Neanderthal to like a very advanced extraterrestrial being, or I don't know. But I feel like we're in that kind of in between to see, or I don't know, maybe the aliens are watching us and be like, are they going to evolve or are they going to all kill themselves and blow up the whole planet? So it's up to you in your own personal life. Are you going to blow up the whole planet and just live in chaos, or not even live at all and care too much about people's opinions of you and just live a very sheltered rat race life? Or are you going to be self-aware of how you are, of caring too much about what other people think, and you're just going to live your life and do your best and live it to the fullest.
Yeah, these are all valid points. That I'm not a Joe Rogan brosif watcher, but he made a good point. He's like, because you were talking about like aliens watching us, and he was like, is a caterpillar aware it's making the cocoon around itself to then develop and become the butterfly and come out? The caterpillar probably has no fucking idea. It's just says it's time to do this thing.
It's wired. Yeah.
It's wired. And so are we just wired to continuously develop like all of this stuff, right? Like that you're like, it's a weird concept where you're like, but we're not even aware of why we're exactly doing it. Like I would say we're within at least 20 years of having people like, we're already like envious of work from home, right? Like a lot of people want to work from home and all that. And it's like this not real tangible work. It's a weird, disassociated, disconnected type of environment that we're putting ourselves in. And it's for what? It's funny too, because we learned from COVID, like, oh, we should probably be connected, right? Like, I would say, not say I haven't connected with you on this podcast and us recording, but I would say I would have gotten way more out of it if I was physically sitting next to you. There is data I'm not getting from you right now that it's hard. Like when people talk about long distance relationships, for example, I tell them, I'm like, we can both make chicken Alfredo at our own respective houses and eat it together, but it is still not going to make up for if we went to that pasta place we like to go to, we both got Alfredo and sat down together. You're only getting a part of it.
You can only get to that level of connection within a certain extent. So while technology can sometimes bridge that gap, if you and I were together cooking dinner, it's just those little things that accumulate that add to that connection, that you pick up on the energy and the vibes of somebody else. And especially in that dynamic, if you're mentioning it like as a relationship, a man and a woman coming together and feeling that safety of each other's comfort and that connection that we have, that relation, and having that quality time, it can never compare to how guys get together and just stream through Twitch and stuff.
Yeah.
It fills the void, but it doesn't compare.
I would say there was a guy that I work with. He's a younger guy, a lower ranking guy. He was like, I didn't know how to approach this girl. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I don't have her Instagram. I don't have any. I'm like, you could just go up and talk to her. I know, man. It's just, how do you do that? And I was like, you make it really awkward if it doesn't work out. That's it. And he ended up getting her number and they talk every day.
Would you look at that?
Yeah. I was like, it's weird because I think his name is Cold Approach on Instagram. He's a creeper. Actually, no, he's a creeper. I'm just going to put that out there.
Should I bleep out that username, or is this a bolo?
No. I'm going to look it up. So this guy, I would have to look it up. But anyway, he does cold approaches to women on the street and has like a GoPro on or something. And I'm like, it's got to be on his chest because it would be really weird. And I'm surprised these girls do it. Or maybe they're paid. Who knows? But I'm like, he's like trying to be this pickup master kind of dude. I'm like, yeah, like it's just so weird, the nuance of like, even I saw a reel where a girl was like, so how does this work? If you do the creep follow because they're cute and they follow you back, like who sends the first DM? Who does, you double tap their photo, then they double tap yours. And then it's this whole like ballet back and forth that's just unnecessary. Be like, you're cute, like you. Let's come on.
Online peacocking is what I call it. It's so weird. And that is partially why I'm single, is if you're going to approach me, is you got to be direct. And I say that as somebody that is a go-getter. Like I see something or someone that I want or I'm interested in and I go for it, but I'm tired of not always, but for the majority, that's just how I am. Like, why are we wasting time here? But yeah, the peacocking is just, and if you ask me to hang out, to people ask me, hey, do you want to hang out Friday night? I'm like, okay, yeah, let's hang out. But if you say, hey, would you like to go on a date with me on Friday night? I'm like, yeah, let's go on a date. But if you don't say date, I just think we're two bros hanging out. Sorry. Not sorry. And the peacocking is, oh, wow, a crumb of attention, a crumb of validation. There's weirdos that follow me that are waiting for me to post my feet and liking all of my shit. I don't care. Hey, thank you, sir. But for the guys that are peacocking, I'm just like, this does nothing. Do you really think that, oh my God, he liked my picture? Like, not anymore. I really don't care.
But you look at like
my picture and what, 20 other hoes, whatever.
I always say that going back to our feeds, I swear I was like, it's annoying,
dude,
because it's
I need to go unlike that video.
unlike it. I'm sorry I brought it up to you.
I was like, oh my God.
I did it to be funny. I did it not to make you embarrassed. I didn't do it to make you embarrassed at all. See,
I guess my algorithm was like, hey, so you like gym chicks with cute matching gym outfits, because that's what I'm currently shopping for on Amazon. So my phone's just, here's all of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, girl.
I love the reason, so it either recommended me because you liked it, or recommended it because I think I watched a reel yesterday. It's like women doing any type of workout except the actual real workout. It's like the guy like jumps off a tree and spins around and squats. And I'm just like, is that why I got this? And I saw you liked it. I was like, I got to write you on this one because it was just too funny.
Oh my God.
But she has several videos that are very popular.
Yeah. Okay. No, because I already know that Instagram's going to see if I zoom in or how long I look in a certain. I'm good. Yeah. No, maybe I will go back and actually be like, hey, girl, where did you buy that workout set?
Yeah, sure.
Drop the link. No, for real. That's all I'm wanting. And I'm obviously not going to go shopping yet.
Wherever that's at.
Yeah.
I will say, I'm annoyed.
Wait. What she's wearing or trashy veteran-owned clothing companies?
Those two. There's so much drama with the veteran clothing companies too. I find it funny. We'll talk about somebody offline with veteran-owned clothing companies.
We're 3 hours in. I'm liking this. We can keep going or we can close out. Up to you.
We'll talk offline.
You can ask me one more question and then I'm going to close out.
If you could collaborate with any military content creator, who would it be and why?
The Wens Chow people, they're all hilarious. I love them. Nora is hilarious too. Just the sarcastic banter is my favorite.
She does a good job fighting people, because it's always like something that's like 52-year-old Dave that served 4 years and was like, how are you an officer? You don't even have a national defense ribbon. And you look at it, you're just like, dude, just let her live, man. Like, she's obviously not just, I don't know. It's weird because she doesn't even put herself out in a way that I think would be like exploiting or shaking it or something on. I think it's mockery of that. And so you're like, do you guys not get the jokes? Like, that's what I love it, because I'm like, I get the jokes. Do you guys get the jokes? I'm not sure. But
it's always the old people. They got something to say. Oh my God. All right. For final remarks, how do you see yourself closing out the rest of this year? And what are some things next year that you're looking forward to?
Next year, at some point, the channel will be back up. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm moving. I think I've told you that. So I'll be changing locations for a bit.
Yeah.
I'm excited about. And then I will be, what else? Really, the rest of the year, I'm just going to be hanging out. And I did talk about how much I was doing my master's and doing all those other things to keep myself going for years. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've really just chilled. I'm not trying to rush it, because I have to remember at one point I did just do this and hang out and give myself grace. So I'm giving myself a little bit of grace. And that doesn't mean I'm not thinking of content ideas. I'm still turning, that brain is still going.
Yes.
It
Write
is
them
just
down.
Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you some of my content ideas offline, so we can.
Okay.
I think you'll find them funny. But yes, I do have content ideas coming, and I have to figure out where, because then it becomes like, where do you want to put it at? Where, because you could put the same piece of video or podcast or whatever on 5 different platforms, and it interacts totally differently with all of them. So it's interesting.
Yeah, no, that's, I think, what a lot of people forget, like the algorithm. Yeah. And different strokes for different folks too. But thankfully that's some good advice. So you just throw it at the wall, see what sticks, and have fun with it. Don't forget to have fun.
Because in the end, You could try and play the algorithm or game or whatever, but if you're not having fun doing it, it's just not worth it. You have to like what you're doing. You can't just not have fun. So have fun, be nice.
Yay.
So
Okay. Thank you so much for
yeah, thanks
coming
for having
on and sharing your experiences and getting deep with it. Very rarely do people take me up on my offer that they can ask me questions. So
me.
I'm really grateful that you did. And for those listening, he's here, he's back. Not
Yeah,
really.
I will make an announcement. Follow me on Instagram, Nicky MGTV. Won't change that. I will do an entire episode where I ask Jess questions. That's all I do is just grill her. So put your questions below this, and then I will then add questions on top of that. You guys will prompt it, and we're gonna get real nitty gritty.
Let's go. Okay. All right. If you don't happen to know already where to find Nikki, he is on Instagram for right now.
Mhm.
Yep. Thank you all for tuning in. And thank you again, Nikki, for coming on. I appreciate
Thanks,
you.
Jess. Appreciate it.